Chapter 1 I'm not a copycat anymore. Jojo, 1991, Surrey, UK. Levin Green is lying on an old wooden bed. The surrounding environment is cramped, dilapidated, and dark. The pitted walls were covered with stains, and the surrounding furniture was even covered in pulp. Obviously, the living environment here is not very good. Levin stretched out his hand, looked at the pair of young palms in front of him, and couldn't help but sigh. What a bad luck. Why did God want me to be reborn in this miserable place? Yes, Levin is a hapless reborn. Levin's original name is Yeating. Levin Green is the name he gave himself after time travel. Levin, contains the meaning of thunder and lightning. Green corresponds to green leaves. He used to be a newly graduated college student from the Dragon Kingdom. He was born into a middle-class family with both parents and excellent grades. He would not have to worry about repaying the mortgage in the future. No matter how you look at it, he is a winner in life. Unexpectedly, after an accident, he returned to his infancy and traveled to England in 1980, arriving at the local orphanage. Now 11 years have passed and he has become an 11-year-old child. What bad luck. Levin Green sighed again. However, in this rebirth, it's not like Levin didn't get the gold finger. Since the age of 3, he has discovered that as long as he concentrates, he can use his mind to move objects slightly. However, even with the mind of an adult and a little bit of superpower, he still didn't do well. There is no other way. As for the orphanage, how can the conditions be any better? As a yellow person, even if he has a handsome face, there is no hope of being adopted. He is now 11 years old and is about to enter an age of rapid growth. If he wants to live a better life in the future, get adequate nutrition, and not become a malnourished little man when he grows up, Levin must consider starting his own business. What can an 11-year-old do? Sitting on a memory of more than 30 years later, Levin is confident that he can do well in the future through prophecy, but now he is only 11 years old and there is too little he can do. If you want to do business and have no capital, if you want to work, this is not Surrey 100 years ago. No one would take in an 11-year-old child. If you want to write songs or something like that, you have always been an amateur player in your past life and have never received professional music education. So what can he do? Looking at the tattered fairy tale book beside the bed, Levin had an idea. Writing. I can be a copywriter. The first choice for copying is a certain Harry Potter series. It's 1991, 6 years before Aunt Rowling publishes her first novel, The Philosopher's Stone. This series was originally positioned as children's fairy tales, and there are no requirements for writing style or depth. It makes sense for me to write a fairy tale for a child. When asked, I just said it was my daily fantasy. And I can definitely write one book a year. A genius child writes a wonderful fairy tale, and the author and the characters grow together. With such a good gimmick, coupled with the potential of the work itself, it will definitely sell out. Speaking of which, there was a boy named Harry Potter in primary school. I can definitely say that he inspired me. If you develop well, maybe you can challenge yourself to gain wealth and freedom before you reach adulthood. Suddenly, a sound interrupted Levin's enjoyment of the future. Dong dong dong. Is this someone knocking on the window? Levin was stunned. This is the second floor. He turned around and saw an owl outside the window. There was an envelope in his pointed mouth, and he was looking at himself. Levin took a deep breath and carefully opened the window. The owl jumped in deftly and dropped the letter on the windowsill. Levin stretched out his hand tremblingly and picked up the letter. The letter is very retro. The envelope is made of thick parchment, and the address is written in emerald green ink. Mr. Levin Green, Street Lurks Orphanage, Little Whinging, Surrey. No stamps affixed. Turning it over, there was a red wax seal on the opening of the envelope with an emblem inside. The handle is a shield coat of arms with a capital H surrounded by a lion, an eagle, a badger and snake. Levin looked at the letter in his hand and sighed deeply. There is no doubt that the arrival of this owl letter means that his dream of becoming a writer who achieved financial freedom by writing The Philosopher's Stone was shattered. But it doesn't matter, because his wizard dream has come. Looking at it this way, his so-called little superpower can be explained clearly. Isn't it a manifestation of the little wizard's magical awakening? And that boy named Harry Potter is probably the wizard savior who survived the catastrophe. The only thing to worry about is, as a blue star person in a world without magic, why can I awaken magic after coming to this world? But that's not important, because he, Levin Green, will become a wizard from now on. With excitement, Levin carefully opened the letter. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Headmaster Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Confederation of Wizards, First Order of Merlin, Grand Wizard, and Chief Wizard of the Wizengamot. Dear Mr. Green, we are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Attached is a list of required books and equipment. The semester is scheduled to begin on September 1st. We will be waiting for your owl to bring your reply before July 31st. Sincerely, Vice Principal, Female, Minerva McGonagall. The second page, Uniform. First year students need 1 3-sided plain workrobe, black. 2 a plain pointed hat, black, for day use. 3 pairs of protective gloves, made of fire dragon leather or similar materials. 4 1 winter cloak, black. Silver buckle. Please note, all student clothing must have name tags. Textbook. All students need to prepare the following books. Standard Spells, Elementary, by Miranda Gorshak. A History of Magic, by Bartilda Bagshot. The Theory of Magic, by Adby Wildfilling. The Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, by Merrick Switch. 1,000 Miracle Herbs and Mushrooms, by Philida Spo. Magic Potions and Potions, by Arsene Ikaija. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, by Newt Scamander. Dark Arts, A Guide to Self-Defense, by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment. A magic wand. A crucible, made of pewter, standard size number 2. A set of glass or crystal vials. A telescope. A brass balance. Students may bring an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are particularly reminded that first-year students are not allowed to bring their own broomsticks, although it is just 2 pieces of parchment. Holding it in your hands makes people feel excited. From now on, I will also become a member of Hogwarts Vocational and Technical School. Levin's mind seemed to be ringing with an, to learn magic, find Liang, 800 stainless steel crucibles. The 4 major colleges have good relations, and the dozen or so professors are highly skilled. Hogwarts is huge, with 200,000 students from all over the world. Stable job, high income, and guaranteed lifelong employment. It was certain that the job would be stable and guaranteed. After all, both Aurors and Death Eaters graduated from here. They produced and sold their own products, so Liang was still stable. Thinking of this, Yiting felt excited again. Although enrolling in Hogwarts this year means that he and his primary school classmate will continue to be classmates, and they will have to face the threats of Voldemort and Death Eaters for the next 7 years. But that's becoming a wizard. Does it get any cooler than this? To hell with being young and famous, having wealth and freedom. If I don't want to play with you moles, I will join the wizards. Chapter 2. I'm no longer a wizard, Jojo. Cuckoo. The hoot of an owl interrupted the traveler's excited fantasy. Seeing the impatient look on the bird's head in front of him, Levin quickly opened the drawer, took out a piece of biscuit, broke it into small pieces and placed it in front of the other person. This is the postman who can decide his fate, so he needs to be bribed well. While the owl lowered its head to peck at food, Levin took out a pen and paper and began to reply. As an adult, he knows very well that as an orphan in a mole orphanage, he cannot act like an old driver because no one knows Hogwarts better than me just because he has watched the Harry Potter series in his previous life. He had to pretend to be hesitant and doubtful. He had to choose his words according to his age, fitting the image of a precocious but fantasy-loving child. Soon, a reply letter was written. Well, that's my problem, Mr. Owl. Putting the reply letter in the owl's paw, Levin watched the postman walk away. Then, he told the director at the orphanage about this in a joking tone. A magic school called Hogwarts sent me a notice, and I responded. The dean's aunt naturally didn't believe what she said and said with a smile, "Oh, little Levin, maybe this is a joke played by some naughty little guy on you. Don't worry about it." But the next day, the slap in the face came. Early the next morning, there was a knock on the door of the orphanage. Levin opened the door, and outside was a tall-looking woman, about 50 or 60 years old, wearing an emerald green robe, glasses, with a strong aura and a serious expression. She looked at the boy in front of her with a searching look. Black hair, dark eyes, yellow skin, handsome appearance, but obviously not very well nourished. "Mr. Levin Green, right?" "Yes, it's me." Levin nodded. "I am the deputy headmistress of Hogwarts, Professor Minerva McGonagall." It turned out that she was responsible for picking me up. Levin nodded. Compared with Professor McGonagall in the previous movie, the witch in front of her only has similar clothing and temperament. But her appearance is completely different. This is not surprising. After all, this is the real world. The savior in elementary school also looked different from Harry Potter in the movie, which is why Levin didn't recognize him, etc. Behind Levin, the dean said in surprise, "You mean, you come from the school that teaches magic as mentioned in the letter?" This is really not. But the word prank was not uttered. After all, one can tell from Professor McGonagall's expression and aura, this woman is definitely not the type to play pranks on others. Looking at her, Levin seemed to be reminded of the dean of high school in his previous life. Before the dean could ask further questions, Professor McGonagall had a wand in his hand. She pointed at the dean's aunt gently, and then the other party's attitude changed. "Oh, welcome, Professor McGonagall. Thank you for taking in little Levin. This is the best choice. You know, little Levin, he is a well-known genius in our orphanage, but it's a pity." "Oh, I won't say more. You guys chat, I'll get you some tea." With that said, the nagging woman walked away. At the same time, Levin found a voice in his head. "This is the first time you feel magic because you have the wisdom of your previous life. You have awakened your heaven-defying understanding. You have a chance of having an epiphany when learning new things. In your previous life, you mastered information from all heavens and all realms. Your arrival had an impact on this world. Your understanding can comprehend the wisdom from all heavens and all realms. You have watched the use of psychic suggestion magic. You have understood the power of the soul, and you have awakened psychic powers. You have understood the passive psychic abilities, charm humans, Hidden thoughts. Incomprehensible. Psychic magic. Awesome. It turns out that the so-called Hogwarts admission notice is just an appetizer. This is the real Goldfinger. The so-called psychic spells come from the profession called psychic in the D&D world. Psychic abilities originate from the cultivation of one's own mental abilities through long-term strict self-examination and mental training. This is an inner energy, derived from one's own life and spirit, and an idealistic power. This ability can directly act on the heart, and can also produce effects similar to spells, but compared with spells and psychic powers, it is invisible and formless, and does not require cumbersome chanting and spellcasting rituals. It can take effect as long as the mind moves. But in contrast, psychic powers completely rely on the inner strength of the caster, and there is no huge magic table or various magic books to learn. Any ability can only be mined by the user. But in any case, the profession of psychics, is a professional system that is no less than that of wizards. As for having to dig out spells on your own, I'm still afraid of this if I have heaven-defying comprehension. The two current spells, charm humans, can make others have a favorable impression of you through mental suggestion, and the effect is similar to hypnosis. Of course, psychological suggestion is not hypnosis, and it does not have 100% control power, but the advantage is that it leaves no trace on others and will not be discovered. As for hidden thoughts, it is completely equivalent to brain hiding technique. This means that Litang does not need to worry at all. The secrets hidden in his heart that can subvert the world will be easily discovered by old shady men like Snape, Dumbledore, and Voldemort. Sure enough, Goldfinger is indeed Goldfinger, and it comes with such a powerful gift package. Professor McGonagall was completely unaware that the little wizard in front of him had become a Shin in the blink of an eye. The cautious Levin naturally would not reveal it. He still pretended to be ignorant, looked at the wand in the other person's hand, and said worriedly, "Is this magic? It won't have any bad influence on the dean, right?" Professor McGonagall's dense face relaxed a little, and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly. "Don't worry, Mr. Green, this is just an ordinary suggestion magic. It won't have a bad effect on her. She will only think that you have entered a good hotel. It's a mole school, after all. It's best not to let moles know about magic." After that, she added, "The term moles are wizards refers to ordinary people who don't know magic." Then, she tapped the table in front of her with her wand, and the four wooden legs of the table suddenly became flexible and ran around the room. "Wow, so awesome." Levin looked surprised. This time he was not pretending. He was an ordinary person in his previous life, and this was the first time he had seen transformation magic with his own eyes. "You watch the transformation spell. You have some understanding of the transformation spell. Your transformation spell expertise +1. Professor McGonagall was not surprised by the mole wizard's expression. "Mr. Green, have you discovered that you have special abilities that other children don't have since you were a child?" "You mean this?" Levin focused on a spoon on the table. The spoon suddenly began to shake, and then bent sharply. If this were in the Pokemon world, Professor McGonagall's hit rate would be lower. "The control is very precise. Well done." Professor McGonagall's eyes lit up and he looked at Levin again. Judging from the intuitive performance, this little trick does not reflect any powerful magic power. But Professor McGonagall knew very well that being able to focus on bending the spoon without affecting the other dishes on the table meant that the little wizard in front of him had great control over his magic. This is something that many little wizards cannot do. It seems that this is a very talented child. "Well, while it's still early, Mr. Green, come with me. I'll take you to buy some things necessary for admission. You can call me Levin." "Professor McGonagall, before I leave, I want to say something to the dean." Professor McGonagall waved his hand. "No need. This kind of thing cannot be explained clearly to moles. If that aunt is not the director of the orphanage, but the parents of a certain mole wizard, it is really necessary that they know where their children have gone. They have this power, even under the wizarding statute of secrecy. But if it's someone from an orphanage, that's a different matter." In the eyes of Professor McGonagall, she cannot be regarded as Levin's guardian, so she uses a confusion spell on him. However, Levin's question did not end. He said a little shyly, "Well, Professor McGonagall, I would like to go shopping with you, but I have no money. I have only saved £9.15 in these years." £9.15 is just enough money to buy a shirt. What is enough to do in the wizarding world? Professor McGonagall smiled gently. "Mr. Levin, I don't think you need to worry about this. This is not the first time Hogwarts has accepted students like you. We have already planned for this. Every school year, we will prepare for you. Take out an interest-free student loan. You'll only have to pay it back once you graduate and get a job." "There are actually interest-free student loans?" "What a conscience. At least it has more conscience than the colleges in Midi, and can even compare with Long Kingdom. Etc." What Professor McGonagall said was not the first time he accepted. Could it be that the last person like me was Tom Riddle? Chapter 3: A Wizarding Career that starts with a loan. After discussing the money issue, Professor McGonagall took Levin to a nearby alley. Leaky Orphanage is located in a remote place. There was not a single human figure to be seen near this alley. Levin suddenly felt something bad. Then he heard Professor McGonagall say, "Mr. Levin, in order to save time, we need to use magic to get to the destination. It may not be comfortable, so please bear with it. Okay. Okay. Levin already knew what he was about to experience. Then, please take my hand. Disapparat. Levin suddenly felt uncomfortable all over his body, as if his whole body was stuffed into the drum of a drum washing machine, and then someone chose to spin dry. A second seems like a century. When Levin felt his feet touch the ground again, his legs almost gave out and he fell. His stomach was churning and he almost vomited out the poor quality bread for breakfast. Professor McGonagall patted Levin on the back and handed him a chocolate frog. Sorry, Mr. Levin, how are you feeling? There are a lot of new students that need to be received these days, so I have to use this way of traveling. Eat something, that way you will be more comfortable. No. It's okay. Professor McGonagall, I'm okay. Put the cold chocolate frog in your mouth. Feeling the jumping frog legs and the cold sweetness in his mouth, it immediately killed all the inferior desserts he had eaten in the past 11 years. Sure enough, even if it's just for food and drink, you have to go to Hogwarts. You personally experienced operation, and you felt painful about this way of traveling, so you understood the spell. Dimensional Anchor. Space Anchor. This spell can temporarily confine space to prevent others from using space movement spells. Why is it that what I comprehend is not the apparition, but the dimensional anchor? Levin suddenly felt a pang of regret. If his first reaction had been enjoyment instead of nausea, maybe he would be able to master this incredible movement skill now? But then again, the dimensional anchor imprisons all spatial movement, which is at least more useful than the anti-apparition array that only targets apparition. Levin raised his head and saw a very small facade in front of him, about 1/3 the size of the orphanage's door. Those who didn't know better thought it was the door of a public toilet. On either side of the facade are a bookstore and a record store. Compared with the colorful neon lights of its neighbors, the sign here is very retro. It's just a big wooden sign with no words on it, but a picture of a leaking cauldron, which Levin thought he could get into. It's an eccentric and eye-catching place, but no one passing by takes a glance at it. So, this is our destination, the Leaky Cauldron on Charing Cross Street. Professor McGonagall explained. This place has been cast a Mull expulsion spell, so Mulls cannot see it. She opened the door immediately and walked in with Levin. The bar was a little dark inside, and the lighting was actually an oil lamp. Levin thinks that with the brightness here, if a light ball is added, it will be like a nightclub. Unfortunately, the wizarding world uses electrical appliances. As a famous place, this place is really too dirty and messy. It is filled with long, square, or round wooden tables, and some wizards are drinking and chatting. They all look weird, and they are very suitable for the bar. When they saw someone coming in, many people took the initiative to say hello to Professor McGonagall. The bald boss behind the bar, Tom Abbott, put down his glass and waved to the two of them. Oh, Professor McGonagall, I haven't seen you for a long time. Are you here to pick up this year's new students? Professor McGonagall nodded. Yes, Tom, a little wizard of Mull birth. I took him to Diagon Alley to buy things. Welcome, little guy. The boss nodded to Levin again with a very friendly expression. Look, what a great young man. By the way, my granddaughter is also a freshman this year. You will become classmates in the future. Levin felt that this was his passive ability, charming humans, taking effect. Hello, Mr. Tom, I'm Levin Green. It is an honor to be your granddaughter's classmate. After exchanging a few words, Professor McGonagall led Levin out of the back door of the Leaky Cauldron. There seemed to be a dead end in front of me, and a trash can was placed against the wall. Professor McGonagall came to the wall. Remember how to open it? Professor McGonagall said and demonstrated. Start from the trash can, count 3 pieces upward, then count 2 pieces horizontally, and tap it with your wand. The next moment, the seemingly thick brick wall began to change. Giggle. The bricks began to recede and overlap, and an arched passage appeared. A cobbled street with twists and turns and no end in sight. Levin followed Professor McGonagall inside. On both sides of the street are shops selling pots, animals, herbs, books and broomsticks. Wizards dressed in different clothes walked in and out of the shops, and owls flew around in the sky. This is Diagon Alley, the starting point of the magical world. Levin was dumbfounded by the dazzling array of things he saw. It was much more exciting than in the movie. Professor McGonagall smiled slightly. Okay Levin, there will be a lot of time to surprise you in the future. Now, let's go to Gringotts first. You have a lot of things to buy. Professor McGonagall stepped forward and pulled Levin forward. After walking for 5 or 6 minutes, the two came to a fork in the road, and Professor McGonagall finally stopped. Opposite the fork in the road is a 3-story white building, Gringotts. Among the ordinary wooden buildings, this tall stone building stands out from the crowd and looks very majestic from a distance. Of course, it's only limited to looking at it from a distance. After walking in, Levin discovered that the white marble columns outside Gringotts were actually crooked. It's okay to be crooked. The worst part is that each stone pillar is crooked in its own way. Not to mention that they cannot be connected into a line. They are not even in the same direction. For Levin, a man of science and engineering, with mild obsessive-compulsive disorder, this is really sad. He secretly vowed that if he had a chance in the future, he would reinstall it. On both sides of the bronze gate of Gringotts, there were elf guards wearing red uniforms with gold trim. Although they were short in stature, They looked arrogant and looked at them in a way that made him a little unhappy. Ignoring these annoying guys, the two walked inside and saw a white and silver door with a row of eye-catching large characters engraved on it. "Come in, stranger, but be careful what happens if you are greedy. If you blindly ask for something without any effort, you will be punished in the most severe way. If you want to take a piece of wealth from our underground vault that was never yours, thief, you have been warned. Be careful not to bring treasure, but evil retribution." "How do you feel when you see this?" Professor McGonagall looked at Levin at the right time. Levin did not show awe and say some standard comments like an ordinary little wizard, but snorted coldly. "I only saw their lustful looks and their lustful looks." Professor McGonagall was stunned when he heard this. It took him a long time before he nodded. "You are right." She suddenly discovered that the children around her were not only more mature than she had imagined, but also smarter than she had imagined. She knew very well, goblins are proficient in smelting, but their concept is very greedy and special. They believe that anything they make is their own, and the fees paid to them are rent. As long as the first owner dies, they have the right to take back their creation. This even includes the original Gryffindor's sword. For this reason, goblins and wizards had many conflicts and even started several wars. But undoubtedly they all ended in the defeat of the goblin. Don't look at the fact that goblins control the only bank in the wizarding world and are in an equal and cooperative relationship with wizards. Facing the wizard, they felt guilty and afraid. They are unwilling to give up their greedy and proud concepts and keep up their reputation for a long time. But the shadow of defeat forced them to obey the wizard's rules. This sentence is a perfect evaluation. On the high counters on both sides of the hall, Professor McGonagall quickly took out Levin's loan. In order to show their condescension, the goblins designed the counter to be higher than expected, even higher than Levin himself. As a result, the chairs behind the counter are also very high. Levin would probably have to use a small ladder to get up and down. "Okay, Levin, you got your loan." McGonagall led Levin away from this annoying place. "The first thing to do next is to buy a wand." Chapter 4 Shock. This protagonist welcomes everyone. Under the leadership of Professor McGonagall, Levin came to a store. The store door is old and narrow, and the window display at the door is made of faded purple cushions with a magic wand on it. Above the door is a peeling gold sign that reads, "Ollivanders has been making exquisite wands since 382 BC. Levin seriously doubts this is far-fetched bragging. If the words on the sign are true, then when their family started making staffs, the Dragon Kingdom was still fighting for hegemony in the spring and autumn period, and Rome was not even an empire. At that time, Britain was still the land of the Celts, and Druidism was popular. The Angstons and Normans who came later were nowhere to be seen. The two pushed the door open and went in. The copper bell next to the door was rang and made a crisp sound. The space in the store is not big, except for the counter and a bench. All that's left are shelves of thousands of long, narrow cardboard boxes containing wands stacked to the ceiling. Although it was the beginning of school season at this time, because it was still early, there were no other customers in the store, so it was very quiet. Levin involuntarily breathed softly as he entered. Even though the wizard has a convenient cleaning spell, the store is still very dusty, which is hard for Levin to accept. "Good morning, Miss McGonagall. This is this year's little wizard, right?" a soft voice said. An old man suddenly slipped out from behind a counter and appeared in front of Levin. He looked at the other person with his big light-colored eyes. He seemed very happy. "Great, you are the first customers to arrive today. I am Garrick Ollivander." So he is the great staff master of Great Britain. Seeming to see Levin's doubts, Ollivander explained, "In most cases, young wizards often go to other stores first and then choose ones last. This is really strange. Obviously for wizards, for me, the magic wand is the most important partner." As a new wizard, Levin shrugged and declined to comment on this topic. "Well, let's get straight to picking out the wand. Kid, hold out your hand." Following Ollivander's words, a ruler flew up from the counter and automatically began to measure Levin's height, arm span and so on. "Which hand is your dominant hand?" "Right hand." Levin stretched out his right hand and said suddenly, "With all due respect, Mr. Ollivander, does your last name mean that the ancestor of your family used an olive wood wand?" The spelling of Ollivander is almost a combination of olive tree and wand. "Oh, yes, indeed, you are such a smart little wizard. Maybe you will be assigned to our Ravenclaw," Ollivander said in approval, not forgetting to measure. "Please raise your other arm first." "Okay." Fortunately, the tape measure is magically operated, allowing Levin to avoid being touched by an elderly man. The ruler starts from the shoulder to the fingertips, then from the wrist to the elbow, the shoulder to the floor, the knees to the armpits, and finally measures the circumference of the head. Levin knows very well that at the age of 11, he is in a period of rapid physical growth. On average, he can grow several centimeters per year. The clothes he can wear this year often become smaller in a few months. In this case, the measured data would soon be out of date. He didn't know what use such measurements would have in choosing a wand, so he could only cooperate stupidly. "Try this one." He waved his hand, and a box flew over. 11¼ inches, made of alder and snake nerve. An alder wand is suitable for wizards who are helpful, considerate and likable. "Can you give it a try?" Yiting waved it in his hand, and a burst of fire lit up. Looking at the smoking box, Levin thought to himself. In his eyes, I seem to be a lovable wizard. Ollivander nodded with satisfaction. You're lucky, just this one, a total of 9 galleons. Wait, is this over? Can I try again, Mr. Ollivander? I don't think it works that well. Levin was shocked to find that the first wand he tested was judged to be suitable by the other party. He couldn't. Suddenly I felt a little unwilling. In his impression, at times like this, the protagonist would be particularly picky when choosing a wand. It's a strange request that you want to pick it longer. The other little wizards all hope to pick the right one quickly. But okay. Perhaps out of appreciation for what Levin just said, or perhaps influenced by charming humans, Ollivander agreed to this request. If you insist, you might as well try this 12-inch staff with an applewood body and a phoenix tail feather as its core. It is powerful, but not suitable for black magic. But when Levin just touched the wand, before he could wave it, it was snatched away. No, it's not this one. Then he looked at Levin with a strange look. Levin was a little confused by this look. Is this guy trying to hint that I will become a dark wizard? What about this one? Cedar wood, phoenix tail feathers. In Ollivander's, wands can only have 3 cores: phoenix feathers, unicorn hair, and dragon heartstrings. However, wands produced by other wand manufacturers may have other wand cores. For example, the core of Fleur's wand is Vela hair, her grandmother's hair, while the cores of wands in the United States are mostly thunderbird tail feathers and cat leopard hair, white river monster back spines, wetland werewolf hair and other materials from the wider Americas. Ollivander asked him to try one wand after another. This time he chose wands that could cast powerful spells and even black magic. But no matter which one it is, Levin can successfully use them to make some noise and achieve a perfect match. But in Ollivander's eyes, every wand can fit perfectly, which means that the perfect fit has not been achieved. Ollivander, who was a little happy at first, already had beads of sweat on his forehead. Mr. Green, this is the first time I have met a little wizard like you who is always willing to come. The good news is that when necessary, you can easily borrow other people's wands, and you don't have to worry about running out of magic spells. He thought again and again, then returned to the back hall and took out a box wrapped in silky satin. In fact, Levin is very satisfied with his situation and thinks it is a reflection of his talent. Be tolerant to diversity. Tolerance is a virtue. There is a saying in life, when you get along with a person very comfortably, and you feel that you are in love with someone after just a few words, and you feel that the other person understands you very well, it is 80% because the other person's second IQ have completely crushed you. This sentence is the same here. Being able to adapt to any wand actually means that his talent can overcome the limitations of any wand. Try this wand, 11 inches, acacia wood, phoenix feathers. Ollivander carefully took out this straight wand that exuded a golden red luster. Just seeing this wand, Levin felt something different. Through the air, a weak attraction came from the wand. This time when he held the wand in his hand, there was no earth-shattering reaction. It was like returning to his original nature. Levin could feel a strange feeling rising in his heart. The wand seemed to have become a part of his body. He only needed to turn his thoughts and the magic power would move with precision. Wow, it seems you two are a good match. Ollivander's expression finally became happy. Acacia is a distinctive wand wood and I find it difficult to find suitable wizards for wands, so I always have very few wands in stock. But in turn, it only shows its strength to the most talented people, and Mr. Green is undoubtedly one of them. After paying Mr. Ollivander 10 gold galleons for the wand, the two walked out of the shop. Professor McGonagall was also very satisfied with the result. Okay, now I have to take you to customize your school uniform. Chapter 5, Unbelievable Understanding. Understanding arcane magic well. Levin showed an awkward smile. Professor, if it's a school uniform, I think second-hand clothing is a good choice based on my financial situation. I just saw a good second-hand clothing store. Professor McGonagall looked at the boy. There was no reluctance on Levin's face. He was once an adult, but he has passed the age where he needs to show off in front of his friends through clothing. Oh well. In fact, with a Levin student loan, it is indeed unrealistic to buy a new one. He calculated very clearly that his student loan for the first year was 30 galleons and would be reduced by half every year thereafter. The wand I just bought from Ollivander's cost 1/3 of the price. For the most basic spellcasting tool, this is no way to save money. If the textbook is bought brand new, it will cost at least 10 plus bulges. For the remaining 10 galleons, he wanted to buy a cauldron and glass bottle set for potions class. He wants to buy dragon skin gloves for herbal medicine class. There are also folding telescopes for astronomy classes. After all, if all were bought new, Levin wouldn't even be able to afford a robe. So, under the leadership of McGonagall, the two went to a second-hand robe store and bought some slightly larger old robes. After all, he was still growing tall so that he could wear them in another year. Then I found a set of old glass bottles. They can still be used after washing, but there are a lot of scratches on them. The easiest thing to get is second-hand books, and Flourishes and Blots has a lot of them under the cabinet. In fact, in Levin's eyes, second-hand books are more suitable for learning compared with the new ones. The second-hand books not only have fewer words per word, but also contain many more notes from senior students. Textbooks with key points drawn in advance. This is very beneficial to lower grade students. If you are lucky and can choose a second-hand book written by a genius like Half-Blood Prince, then it will not be a problem to become a top student in this subject. The only thing you need to be careful about is not to choose second-hand books left by bad students, especially those with comic strips on them. After buying second-hand goods, Levin still had 5 gold galleons left, and the only supplies he needed were a crucible and a telescope. These two things are relatively difficult to find useful second-hand goods. How about we buy new ones? If it's just a crucible and a telescope, 5 galleons is enough, McGonagall suggested. No, Professor McGonagall, I want to wait. Levin shook his head when he heard this. There are still nearly 2 months until the start of school. Maybe I can find suitable second-hand goods and save some galleons. If you just buy a new one, 5 galleons is enough. But you have to spend it completely. This is not in line with Levin's consumption philosophy. In terms of the consumption concept left over from his previous life, no matter how tight he was, he had to leave some money for emergencies. The so-called galleons are not everything, but nothing is impossible without galleons. After thinking for a while, Professor McGonagall finally agreed with his approach and handed him the remaining student loan. Based on this short period of observation, Professor McGonagall felt that Levin was indeed a very independent little wizard who could take care of himself. After operating again and sending Levin back to the orphanage, she left. But Levin didn't stay in the orphanage as she thought. He plans to stay in Diagon Alley and work to make money. He has discovered that if he wants to become stronger quickly, in addition to studying honestly, he must also rely on his incredible understanding. If you want to gain some understanding, besides studying honestly, the best way is to observe and experience magic. But now he is just an ordinary Hogwarts freshman. If he wants to observe more and experience more magic, the best way is to stay in the magical world and participate in the production and life of the magical world. The most direct way is to work. Working people, working souls, and working wizards are all superior to others. So, as soon as he returned to the orphanage, Levin began to fool the director: because of my special situation, the school also introduced me to a work-study job before the start of the school year. Not only did I make money, but it also provided me with food. The dean was already under a confusion spell cast by Professor McGonagall, and coupled with Levin's charming humans aura, she easily believed this. Levin stayed in his room at night, preparing to spend his last night in the orphanage. First, think about luggage. In fact, there is nothing to bring except some clothes. However, you can buy more related stationery in the Muggle world. For example, ink. The Harry Potter world does not need to copy magic scrolls, so no special ink is needed. Bring more paper, as Hogwarts only requires parchment for homework. If you use it yourself, you still have to choose high quality and cheap ordinary paper. There is also a pen. After all, he has never used a quill at all. He didn't have much money, so he naturally had to budget carefully and buy whatever was cheap. If it weren't for the fact that the school uniforms couldn't be made by Mull tailors, he would have wanted to have the robes made by Mulls. After all this is done, it's still early. I remember that the rule that little wizards could not use magic outside of school started during the holidays of the first semester. Before that, it seemed that wands could be used in private. For example, Hermione once practiced magic spells at home, which is the so-called trace. The silk was added after school started. If this is the case, then you should roll it up yourself. Hermione can't be allowed to be more beautiful than before. So Levin opened standard spells, elementary in front of his desk. A spell, or spell, is a controlled manifestation of magic, usually performed by speaking an incantation, to affect the world in a supernatural way. Generally speaking, there are 4 main conditions for successful casting of a spell: 1. Gesture, incantation, concentration and intention. Spells are usually divided into several categories: transfiguration, charms, breaking spells, and healing spells. Curses are further divided into ordinary spells, jinxes, poison spells, and curses according to the level of malice. It should be noted that among these categories, the lines between are flexible and blurred. Therefore, a particular spell can belong to more than one category at the same time. A charm is a spell that adds specific properties to an object or creature. A charm differs from a polymorph in the following ways. A charm adds specific properties to an object or creature, whereas a polymorph changes it into something completely different. For example, a color-changing charm causes an object to change its color, a levitation charm causes an object to levitate, and a happy charm increases a creature's mood. You have read standard spells elementary and have a clear understanding of the magic system of this world. The inspiration from the heavens and the world has made you aware that the magic system of this world still has shortcomings. You understand the arcane magic system, and you begin to try to classify spells in the form of arcane magic. You understand the attribute template in a way that you can understand, and use it to judge the attributes of yourself and others. Name: Levin Green. Race: human. Level: LV1 wizard/LV1 shin. Attributes: strength 6, constitution 6, agility 8, intelligence 14, perception 12, charisma 14. Specialties: Heaven-Defying Comprehension, Psychic Power LV1, Magic Power LV1. Spells: Level 1, Hide Thoughts, Charm Humans, Passive, Talk to Animals, Passive. Ring 4, Dimensional Anchor. As expected of his incredible understanding, he figured out the arcane magic system and attribute panel just by looking at the outline. Unlike the Harry Potter magic system, which is rough classification and rough system, the arcane magic system is relatively more rigorous. From a horizontal perspective, arcane magic is divided into 8 schools. Their protection system specializes in protection and resistance. Conjuration system, involving summoning, teleportation, and creation. Prophecy system, that reveals information and predicts the future. Their confusion and control system, that changes the minds of others and controls their behavior. Plastic energy system, that shapes magical energy. Illusion, that deceives other people's senses and minds. Necromantic system, that controls life and death. Change system, that changes the object itself. From the perspective of vertical difficulty, arcane magic divides spell difficulty from low to high into levels 0 to 9, as well as legendary spells above level 9. In addition to this, arcane magic also has a super magic system, that enhances the various effects of a single magic by increasing the difficulty of casting spells. It can be said that the entire system is quite complete. Don't know though. What Levin understands now is just a framework, a prototype. But he believes that as time goes by, as his research on magic continues to deepen, and his understanding gradually deepens, he will be able to completely merge the spells in the Harry Potter world with his system, and at the same time bring many unique arcane magic systems into existence to this world. By then, the entire magical world will be turned upside down. After closing his eyes to comprehend the new system, Levin continued to flip through standard spells, elementary, and entered the learning stage of specific spells. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. If you want to transform the magic system in this world, start with every magic. Chapter 6: Creating a spell for the first time. The first spell recorded in the textbook was the wand lighting charm. As the simplest kind of luminous spell, the wand lighting charm can make the head of the wand glow brightly, allowing people to see things clearly in the dark. Concentration is required when using this charm, otherwise you may set the wand on fire, causing irreversible damage. You have learned the wand illuminating spell. You are proficient in arcane magic. You have understood the core concept of the illuminating spell, and you have made upgrades. Your lighting spell is upgraded to dancing light spell. Dancing light spell. You can ignite a little light at the tip of the wand, illuminating a range of up to 30 meters. You can control this light to fly anywhere within a certain range. Levin took out his wand, turned off the light, and began to cast the spell in the way he understood. Lumos. Instantly, the tip of the wand emitted a white light, flickering. Yes, the difficulty of casting the spell is almost the same as the original version, and the consumption is similar. The upgrade does not affect the number of magic rings. Levin took out a notebook and recorded it with a pen. It looks much brighter than in the movie and can completely replace incandescent lights. With a thought in his mind, he slightly adjusted the magic output, and the light dimmed instantly, changing from an incandescent lamp to a flashlight, and then from the flashlight to a firefly. Now it feels like something from a movie. But this is not enough. Let's test the new ability next. As his mind changed, the bright light actually left the stick and began to spin around Levin, like a flying firefly. Under Levin's control, the firefly's flight trajectory became more and more complex. First a simple 0, then an 8, and finally Levin's signature was even drawn on the trajectory. It's not difficult to control, and it can even be easily set to automatically surround. He thought for a while, then slightly dimmed the brightness of the small light ball, then opened the window and controlled the light ball to fly out of the window. The orphanage is located in a remote place, and there were no people outside. No one noticed anything unusual on the second floor of the orphanage. Even if someone accidentally saw it, since Levin made the light ball very dark, they would probably mistake it for a firefly. Then, fly. Let me see how far you can fly. Levin stood at the window, watching the ball of light go away. 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters. Finally, after flying about 20 meters away, the light ball finally went out due to insufficient energy supply. Well, the first time you use it, you can fly up to 20 meters away from the wand, but if you practice more, you may be able to fly further. In short, this dancing lights technique, without increasing the difficulty of casting the spell, is far superior to the original lighting technique, in both functionality and controllability. The first time I invented a spell, it was a huge success. I am indeed a genius. Next, Levin continued to practice and test the dancing light technique. After using it dozens of times, Levin has become completely proficient in the dancing lights technique, and can even fly as far as 30 meters. But at the same time, he felt like the magic in his body was empty. So that's it for today. Being able to invent dancing light technique on the first day can be said to be a full harvest. With endless expectations for magic, Levin fell asleep tiredly. Early the next morning, Levin said goodbye to his reluctant aunt and boarded the bus to London. As an area adjacent to London, Surrey is not far from London. After only sitting for an hour, Levin arrived at the door of the Leaky Cauldron. Even though it's early in the morning, it's still so dark here. Levin, who had just learned dancing light technique, wished he could have dozens of dancing light techniques here. In addition to magic itself, the alchemy, magic item manufacturing and other industries in the Harry Potter world are also fragmented. Make magic items. Essentially, magic is imprinted on items by inlaying magic gems, engraving magic patterns, etc. In the world of Harry Potter, the knowledge in this area is also very scattered. Not all spells can be permanent, and the methods and costs of permanent spells are also different, making it particularly troublesome to learn. But in the arcane magic system, as long as it is magic, it is basically constant. The constant cost is basically only related to magic circle spells. The cost of a constant high-level spell is very high, but a constant zero-level dancing light spell can be done by a mage with a little relevant training. As for the Harry Potter world, wand illumination cannot be constant, and the only relevant magic item is Goblet Fairy Fire. It is a kind of enchanted flame that can burn forever. Because it is too difficult to cast, few wizards can create it. But in terms of lighting effects, dancing light is a cold light source, and fairy fire is fire after all. Who can stand it being so smoky, especially indoors? If you can learn to make magic items and make magic lamps through constant dancing lights, you can definitely make a lot of money. In just a moment, Levin had a series of money-making plans in his mind. But now he is just a freshman, and it is still early to make money through this. When he came to the counter, the baronet recognized him immediately. "Oh, you are the new student yesterday. What is your name?" "Levin. Green, right?" Tom was deeply impressed by the handsome yellow-skinned boy in front of him. "Yes, Mr. Tom, just call me Levin." Levin nodded and said politely, "Mr. Tom, it's like this. I need to live here until school starts, but I am not financially well off. Can you tell me where is the cheapest place? How much does a room cost? By the way, if it's convenient do you need a part-time waiter?" "Well, I haven't thought about the waiter issue for the time being." "Oh no." But looking at the old clothes on the boy's body and his pitiful expression, Tom suddenly felt that he had done a great sin by rejecting the other person, so he desperately thought about how to make amends. "Oh, yes. I also have a relatively empty utility room in my tavern. You can live the..." "No, you don't have to pay. You just need to clean it for me after work or before work every day. In the morning what do you think I can offer you? A large bacon sandwich for breakfast?" "Thank you so much, Mr. Tom. You are indeed a gentleman." Levin immediately praised him sweetly. After all, it is too easy for a wizard to clean the house and so on. He only needs to move his wand. This workload is not part-time work at all, but Tom is helping him. Charming humans is really useful. Coupled with his natural high charm, most people will have a good initial favorable impression when they first meet. Next, as long as you talk about sweets, you can do whatever you want. The utility room is not big. After putting down a mattress and a table, it is almost full. But Levin couldn't ask for more at this time. After briefly packing his luggage, Levin put on his second-hand wizard robe and went to the backyard with his wand. Following Professor McGonagall's example, Levin gently knocked on the brick, stepped into the arch, and walked into Diagon Alley. After solving the accommodation problem, it's time to consider a part-time job. Chapter 7 looks like a child. Detective Levin. How does a young wizard who has not yet entered school find a good job in Diagon Alley? First, rule out Gringotts. Of course, with the level of logic of the wizards in this world who burn books and entrap scholars. In his previous life, Levin, a man from science and engineering, could beat more than 95% of wizards in mathematics. This level is more than enough to be an accountant and cashier in Gringotts. However, this requires the goblins of Gringotts to believe it. Secondly, places like Partridge's Crucible Shop and Quidditch Boutique are also inappropriate. The products in these stores are all bulky items. It was either a crucible or a broomstick, and the work inside looked like physical labor, and his little arms and legs couldn't do anything about it. After completing the elimination method, there are more stores to choose from. Pharmacy that sells potions made of various ingredients, Ela Owl Shop that sells owls, Flourish and Blott's bookstore where I used to buy second-hand books, Florin Fusco's ice cream shop that is most popular among little wizards, and Madame Malkin's robe store that sells customized school uniforms. The Diagon Alley stationery store that sells all kinds of stationery. Among them, the first choice is of course Flourishes and Blott's bookstore, because I can read books for free. Of course, the above is just Levin's unilateral choice. The reality is that he chose the store, but the store did not choose him. They say he is too young and not old enough to work. Wow, are you wizards so law-abiding? Obviously the social level is still equivalent to that of Muz 100 years ago. Then why not apply the rules of the Great Yin Empire 100 years ago when it comes to recruiting workers? Levin's job search fell into deep trouble until he came to the Fantastic Beasts store. At this time, there was a large circle of people surrounding the entrance of the Magical Beasts store. There was a lot of noise inside, and they didn't know what was going on. It happened that Levin couldn't find a job, so he got bored and got into it. Then he saw the female clerk in the store standing in front of a large cage, hurriedly trying to catch the sniff inside. Beside him, a man wearing a well-dressed suit and a top hat crossed his arms and looked at her impatiently. The Niffler is a long-snouted creature covered in black fur, like a cross between a platypus and a mole. They have a gentle personality and are good at digging. Their favorite thing is shiny treasures. They will put the found treasures in the bag on their abdomen and destroy everything around them in search of shiny items. Therefore, Nifflers are often regarded as the best helpers for treasure hunters. The female shop assistant cursed in a hurry. "Who are you damn little guys? Whoever stole Moore's pocket watch, come forward." Levin could see that there were at least 6 sniffs in the large cage, running away from the female clerk in a panic. She finally caught one, hung it upside down and kept swinging it around. "Don't catch me, don't catch me, I'm so dizzy." Through the animal conversation ability, Levin can hear the complaints of the little ones. The clerk shook it off for a long time, only to get out a pitiful silver sickle from its belly bag. "Damn it, not this one." She tried to put the sniff into another cage, but the angry sniff raised his mouth and bit the clerk. The clerk let go in pain, and Cuckoo fell into the midst of his companions again. The worst part is, these sniffs look so alike that the store clerk can't tell them apart. Ouch, the efforts just now are not worth it at all. Seeing the incompetent and furious look of this clerk, Levin broke into a smile. This is not because he was gloating over his misfortune, but he discovered, the opportunity to work his coming. He immediately stepped forward and tugged on the hem of the female clerk's clothes. "Hello, sister. I'm Levin Green. Maybe I can solve your troubles." The female clerk was anxious about how to find the customer's pocket watch, and was suddenly stopped by someone. She was about to get angry. Looking back, he saw that the person calling him was a cute little boy. For some reason, his anger immediately dropped by half, and he managed to smile patiently. "Hello, Mr. Green. It's a pleasure to serve you. But look, I'm busy now. Can I entertain you later?" But Levin shook his head and insisted, "You misunderstood. I am not here to seek services. On the contrary, I am here to help you." "What help do you mean?" The female clerk looked confused. "I can help you find the Niffler who stole the pocket watch." Here, the female clerk looked at him suspiciously and said, "I'm glad you are willing to help me, but you are too young. If you come to scratch and sniff, you will get hurt." "You're overthinking, Sister Clark." Levin smiled confidently. "I can find out the identity of the thief without having to do anything." After that, he took a step forward, came to the cage, and said to Cuckoo in the cage, "Hey, little guys, who just got a new baby?" In the eyes of outsiders, Levin did not speak, but just made a chirp sound. The sound was almost like a real sniff. This is exactly what their animal talking ability is doing. This strange scene stopped the clerk who tried to stop Levin. At this time, several Cuckoo were also stunned in the cage. They are also very strange. Why can the huge creature in front of them speak their language? Is it puzzling that this is also a giant sniffer? Their little minds couldn't process such complicated information, but they still answered Levin's question honestly. Then, Levin turned back and looked at the female clerk. "I'm sure the thief is this little guy. He has a broken finger on his left front paw." After hearing Levin's words, the female clerk doubtfully grabbed the sniffer and swung it upside down. Soon, a gold pocket watch fell out of the little guy's abdominal bag. "Yes, that's it, my pocket watch. That's the best gift Marlin left for me." The wizard in a suit excitedly picked up the pocket watch, carefully put it into his arms, thanked Levin, and left the shop. This is the end of a farce. "Oh, thank you, kid." After the onlookers dispersed, the female store clerk held Levin's hand and thanked her profusely. "You have done me a big favor." Then he asked curiously, "You can actually imitate the sniff's call, and you can tell at a glance which sniff stole the pocket watch. How did you do it? Can you talk to the sniff?" Levin shook his head and nodded again. "Absolutely. I have a talent and can vaguely feel the emotions of small animals." He did not truthfully acknowledge the ability of animal conversation, and discounted it. Then the clerk screamed, "Oh my gosh, it's amazing that you have the same talent as Mr. Newt Scamander." Newt Scamander, a famous magical zoologist and the author of the book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, is a big celebrity in the magical animal circle. Anyone who is a fan or practitioner in the related industry has heard of him. His great name, Scamander himself, is known for being able to communicate with magical animals. This is why Levin partially conceals his abilities. The so-called Superman is half a genius, and a Superman is a madman. He said that he could communicate with magical animals, and there was a precedent for Newt. Everyone would only envy him after hearing this. But saying that he can talk to magical animals would be an exaggeration. Communication can only involve simple emotions, but dialogue involves complex logic and language. Sure enough, after hearing this, the female clerk looked at him a little softer. "I am Hayden Trist, the clerk of this magical animal store. Thank you for helping me solve this problem. Little guy, if you need any magical animals or related supplies in the future, you can come to me. I'm within my authority. I can give you a 10% discount." "It's okay, clerk sister." Levin waved his hand pretending to be generous, then raised his head and gave the other party an innocent look. "Then, do you need part-time child labor?" Chapter 8 Quantum Waves Quick Reading, BoyEh, so, the favor you just owed must be paid back so soon? Hayden just was a little confused. She suddenly realized that she seemed to have fallen into a hole she had dug. But when she saw the boy's sweet smile, the female clerk immediately changed her mind. If you think about it carefully, working with such a handsome boy is actually not a bad idea. What's more, he has the same talent as the famous Newt Scamander. It should be very convenient for this kind of person to take care of magical animals. As a result, Levin found his first job taking care of animals at the magical creatures shop. Since it is only a part-time job, the working hours range from 3 to 5 hours a day, as long as the tasks for the day are completed. The daily wage is 3 sickle. The exchange rate conversion in the wizarding world is really troublesome. 1 galleons equals 17 sickles, 1 sickles equals 29 nats. I don't know which little genius invented this messy conversion. Do you like prime numbers so much? Considering the level of mathematics that the wizards burned books and harassed Confucians, Levin seriously doubts that this is a huge hoax. The purpose is to make things difficult for these stupid wizards. All in all, it was not a bad wage for a child laborer. Calculated, that's 5 galleons and 8 sickles in 1 month. And I've earned back the wand money in 2 months. Well, first, let's start by cleaning up the animals. The clerk raised the wand in front of Levin as a demonstration, and said to a cage with a cat in front of him, "Cleaned up." In an instant, all the cat hair and feces in the cage automatically flew into a bucket, and the entire cage took on a new look. "Try to use it, Mr. Green." The store manager put away the wand and said, "You may only be able to clean a small area at first, but if you use it with a powerful person, you can clean the entire room directly." Levin nodded and raised his wand to point at another cage containing eradication, clean up. With his incredible understanding, he successfully used this spell on his first try, leaving the clerk stunned. "Well, you learn really fast. You have used this spell at home before." "Okay, then what we are going to learn is the cyclone cleaning spell. Unlike the descaling spell, this spell is better at dealing with liquid waste. Since it was my first time to start working, I needed Hayden's demonstration and teaching." Levin stayed busy until 4 in the afternoon before finishing work and returning to the Leaky Cauldron. "How are you today, kid?" Old Tom asked with concern. "Great, Mr. Tom, I found a job." Levin beamed. "Ah, that's great." Tom nodded and handed Levin a glass of butterbeer. "This is to celebrate your first job, so I'll teach you." "So, what job did you find?" Tom asked after Levin took a long gulp of butterbeer. "I work part-time at the Fantastic Beasts shop." "Fantastic Beasts, that's great. What exactly do you do?" "Feeding, grooming, cleaning." "I do everything, but the most important thing is cleaning their cages. These little guys are so unhygienic that they always make themselves dirty with their own feces accidentally." This is really not a good job." Old Tom shook his head. He could imagine what a dirty working environment it was. "For a little wizard like me who has not yet entered school, this is enough. Not only can I learn a lot of magical animal knowledge, but I also learned a few new spells." As he spoke, Levin waved his magic wand, cleaned up. In an instant, a tabletop that had not yet been cleaned became completely clean. "That way, my job with Mr. Tom will be much easier." "Ah, this kid is still eager for the job I gave him." Old Tom found that he began to like this child. Children who are so mature and optimistic at a young age, always able to respond positively to difficulties, and don't blame others or anyone else, such children will surely become great talents in the future. So, in the days that followed, Levin's part-time career began. The work of the Fantastic Beasts caravan is tedious and difficult. There are many kinds of animals here, such as color-changing giant snails, fire crabs, black mice, owls, ravens, cats of various colors, velvet, deformed rabbits and so on. Each animal has different eating habits and living habits. Naturally, food arrangements and other work must be treated differently. For the average person, just remembering the habits of each animal requires a lot of thinking. But one of the byproducts of incredible understanding is absolute memory ability. It's easy to remember what cats and dogs eat. No matter what happens, Levin can ask him personally. Just like a person drinking water, he knows whether it is warm or cold. For him, it is just a matter of asking if the little animals are full and thirsty. So soon, the clerk was full of praise for his work and believed that his ability was no worse than that of ordinary adult wizards. But Levin was not satisfied with this. It takes him about 2-3 hours to complete the daily work in the magical beast shop. The remaining time can be used to accept more challenges. Compared with Mole society, which has entered urbanization, the wizarding world is still in the stage of acquaintance society due to its overall backwardness and low population base. In a society of acquaintances, a person's credibility is not determined by files, but by the endorsement of people he knows. Now, Levin is discovering the benefits of having someone endorse him. Since receiving good reviews from Hayden Trace, a clerk at the Fantastic Beasts store, other stores on the street have gradually relaxed their restrictions on him. So next, he found jobs at Flourish and Blott's bookstore and Slug and Gig's drugstore. This not only increased his daily salary to 8 cents, but also allowed him to learn a lot of new knowledge that could not be learned in books. For example, at Slug Gig's pharmacy, Levin learned many basics of potions, including but not limited to how to handle basic medicinal materials, such as slicing medicinal materials, grinding powder, squeezing juice, etc. For this purpose, Levin also learned the cutting spell. After working this summer, Levin believes that there will be no chance of the old bat causing trouble in future potions classes. In addition, Levin also saw a lot of advanced potion materials. For example, bicorn horns, silenced bird feathers, African tree snake skins, etc. Of course, for this type of material, he only learned about the relevant properties and uses, and did not know how to handle it himself. With his salary, if something went wrong, he wouldn't be able to afford it if he worked for another year. Overall, the dispensary is as dirty and tedious as the magical creatures shop. Every time Levin walks out of the pharmacy, he always smells weird, ranging from slug mucus to amphora juice. You have to use it several times to clean it up every time. Compared with the first two, the work at Flourish and Blott's bookstore is much cleaner. At Flourish and Blott's, much of Levin's job is organizing books. For example, you can find a certain kind of book from the warehouse and put it on the shelf, or you can search for a rather unpopular book at the request of the customer. The work is very simple, and even after work, Levin can read a few books. But for Levin, this job brought him the most surprises, because at work, Levin learned several new spells: transcription, copying a document into another book, reading magic, reading and understanding the magic words on books and items. Language proficiency: you can understand what creatures say, or read text messages that are originally incomprehensible. It cannot take effect on texts containing special powers, such as dragon language, abyssal text, etc. Scholar's touch: you can use this spell to touch and absorb the knowledge in the book as if you had read it once. In short, they are all spells that are easy to learn. Language comprehension allows Levin to understand all common languages. Those so-called masters who are proficient in more or less languages must be regarded as poor in knowledge in the face of proficient in languages. Reading magic allows Levin to understand various magical texts, which makes a schoolboy ecstatic. Scholar's touch allows Levin to store knowledge directly in his mind without spending time reading. This is true quantum wave speed reading. Of course, this kind of storage is just storage. If you want to fully understand and master it, you need to spend more time to understand it. But that's enough. With the help of his heaven-defying understanding, language comprehension, reading magic, and scholar's touch, were even fixed on him, becoming passive skills like charming humans, which can be used without actively casting spells. After that, Levin cherished his job at Flourish and Blott's even more. He only needs to touch it to store the contents of the book in his mind. This ability is the most convenient for free prostitution. So Levin circled the bookshelf all day long, like a scanner, wishing to store the entire bookstore's books in his mind. For this reason, I even considered quitting my other two part-time jobs and focusing on Flourish and Blott's bookstore. However, because the summer vacation was still long, he had plenty of time to scan books, so he gave up. As Levin continues to work, time flies by. In a blink of an eye, the back-to-school season is coming. Chapter 9 Platform 9 and 3/4 In the eyes of Tom Abbott, the owner of the Leaky Cauldron, the little wizard he kindly took in was indeed a great person. He lived alone at a young age, working 4 jobs a day, and he didn't like eating and playing like other little wizards. My only hobby is reading books. Such self-discipline and perseverance are even inferior to most adult wizards. At least he didn't think he could do it. The most important thing is that Levin is not only diligent, but also has a strong magical talent. In these 2 months, he himself taught the other party 4 magic spells: flying spell, floating spell, water-making spell and repairing spell. No matter which spell it is, the boy can learn it completely after only seeing it once. You know, this is a little wizard born as a mule. This means that he did not receive wizarding education before receiving the mail from Hogwarts. But his performance surpassed that of any half-blood or even pure-blood wizard. Tom himself had never seen such a talented little wizard. So, soon, Levin's treatment at the Leaky Cauldron became a little better. In addition to the bacon sandwich in the morning, Tom would occasionally prepare snacks for him. And Levin also met Tom Abbott's granddaughter, Hannah Abbott, a girl with rosy complexion and golden hair. Oh, yes, it is the Iron Hat King of Hogwarts. Levin also didn't expect that she was the granddaughter of the owner of the Leaky Cauldron. Within these 2 months, the two became friends. As the first day of school gradually approached, Levin also quit several part-time jobs. After 2 months of work, Levin had saved 25 galleons. With the money, he bought a new robe from Madame Malkin, for formal occasions, and a brass folding telescope from Weeseeker's Magical Supplies. He did not buy a crucible because 2 of the owners of Slugjeg's drugstore gave him a very sturdy old one. Hayden just of the Fantastic Beasts shop gave Levin an eagle owl to use as a messenger. Levin named it Herma as a kind of commemoration of his previous life. Before school started, Levin checked his property panel one last time. Name, Levin Green. Race, human. Level, LV2 wizard/LV1 shin. Attributes, strength, 7. Constitution, 7. Agility, 8. Intelligence, 14. Perception, 12. Charisma, 14. Specialties: Divine Comprehension, Psychic Power LV1, Magic Power LV2, Magic Resistance LV1. Spells: Level 0, Reading Magic, Constant, Cleansing Charm, Whirlwind Sweeping Charm, Levitation Charm, Dancing Lights, Scribe, Flying Charm. First level: Hide Thoughts, Cutting Charm, Charm Human, Constant, Speak with Animals, Constant, Understand Languages, Scholar's Touch. Level 2, Restoration Spell, Ring 4, Dimensional Anchor. After using magic continuously for 2 full months, Levin's wizard level was raised by 1 level, so his magic level was also improved, and he also had basic magic resistance. Strength and physical fitness have each improved by 1, which comes from 2 months of relatively nutritious diet. Coupled with the increasingly full Dharma watch and the dozen or so gold galleons in his pocket, Levin's past 2 months have been particularly fulfilling. Seeing Levin pulling his suitcase to say goodbye to him, Tom Abbott felt a little emotional. The thin wizard asked himself about the cheapest room as if it happened yesterday. In the past 2 months, the boy has not only grown a lot stronger, but also grown a bit in height. Fortunately, I bought the wizard robe 1 size larger, otherwise it might not fit. Boy, you must study hard at Hogwarts and don't waste your talent. He waved at the counter. Levin also waved to him before leaving the Leaky Cauldron. Levin arrived at King's Cross Station at 10:30. Salutes, crucibles, books, owl cages. As an 11-year-old child, it took a lot of effort for him to get here with all the baggage he had. He secretly vowed that as long as he had the conditions, he would study the traceless stretching spell. With or without this spell, the travel experience is completely different. Soon, he found Platform 9 and Platform 10. The space between the 2 platforms is empty except for a few pillars. Levin expertly counted to the 3rd pillar, then reached out and touched it. The pillar was solid. This means that you can only travel through it if you reach enough speed. So Levin pushed the suitcase and rushed towards the brick pillar with suicidal momentum. In the blink of an eye, the scene in front of him was turned upside down. Time seems to have returned from the end of the 20th century to 100 years ago. Retro platform, retro clothing, and white smoke floating overhead. Next to the platform crowded with passengers is a dark red steam locomotive. The sign on the train read, Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. While it was still early, Levin quickly got on the train. What is it like to ride on a train full of students? At this time, Levin only had one thought: it was too noisy. The sounds of friends playing around, the sounds of saying goodbye to parents, the sounds of people rushing to put away their luggage. You are Levin Green. A voice sounded from behind him. With surprise, Levin looked back. It was a familiar face, curly black hair, wearing glasses, and quite handsome in appearance. Isn't this his elementary school classmate, Harry Potter? Before the letter from Hogwarts, he always thought it was just the same name. Now when I take a closer look, the boy in front of me does look a bit like a savior. Hello, Harry, I'm surprised to see you here. Levin tried his best to express a hint of surprise. Give me a moment, please. Thank you. Harry Potter dragged the box through the crowd. Great, Levin. I didn't expect you to be a wizard too. Harry found that he could actually see an acquaintance from Mole School, and was very excited. Uncle Vernon tried every means to prevent me from getting the letter. Luckily Hagrid came to pick me up. His excited look was as if Levin was just a classmate, but a close friend whom he hadn't seen for many years. Levin can understand. For a boy whose parents have died, suddenly entering a strange world can be a bit scary. When meeting an acquaintance at this time, it is easy to regard the other person as a psychological support. This is why college freshmen often hold hometown gatherings. I didn't expect to meet you here. Levin nodded and lifted the big box in his hand. Why don't we go find an empty box and sit down first? Otherwise we might have to sit separately if it's later. In this way, the two of them walked to the second half of the train before finding a box. After placing his luggage, Harry couldn't help but say, "When did you know you were a wizard?" "I once turned my teacher's wig blue, and I accidentally opened the zoo's reptile house before. But I didn't know I was a wizard until the summer vacation. Those are all the effects of magic. I have discovered since I was a child that I can move objects with my thoughts. Just like you, I didn't know that it was magic until summer vacation." Levin shared his past experience with Harry. "Perhaps we can play together during the summer vacation," Harry suggested with some anticipation. It felt really good to have someone of the same kind among his friends. "Of course. No problem." Levin agreed perfunctorily. In fact, he thought that after the school branched out, if they were not in the same college, their relationship might become weaker. With his incredible understanding, what he wants to do most right now is to study and comprehend magic and become a stronger person than Dumbledore. As for the adventurous tricks of the Savior in the original plot, it is not that important. Just when Harry and Potter were in the thick of their conversation, and Levin was having a rough time with each other, the two of them suddenly felt a shock all over their bodies. The train gradually started to move north from London to the Scottish Highlands. Chapter 10. The little train starts. Finally drove. Dong dong dong. Just then, there was a knock on the door. The sliding door opened, and a little red-haired man poked his head in. "Is there anyone here?" he asked, pointing to the seat next to Harry. "Everywhere else is full." The two shook their heads. so the other party sat in with some restraint. After putting down his luggage, he immediately turned his eyes to the window of the car, as if he was not in the same dimension as the two of them, until he heard what Levin called each other during the conversation between the two. "My name is Ronald Weasley. Are you really Harry Potter?" The boy turned around and blurted out. "You're Ronald Weasley, the second of Hermione's two useless men." Even with his butterfly effect, the two brothers still met on the train. "Is this fate? Then are you serious?" "You know," he said, pointing to Harry's forehead. Harry deftly brushed a lock of hair away from his forehead, revealing the lightning-shaped scar. He had done this action countless times during this period, and it seemed that Levin was the only one who didn't make a fuss. Ronald's eyes widened. "Is this what the mysterious person did?" "Yes," Harry said, "but I don't remember it anymore." "Don't remember at all?" Ronald asked eagerly. "Well, I just remember there was a lot of green light, and nothing else." "It's amazing that you can remember the green light. Most people can't remember things when they are babies," Levin explained, then said, "Speaking of which, I heard that there is a sorting ceremony after entering Hogwarts." "There is no such thing in Gwaz's school." After all, he and Harry had a bit of friendship as old classmates, so they changed the subject here just because they didn't want to bring back painful memories for each other. "Speaking of Hogwarts and the sorting house," the other two people immediately became excited. Ronald immediately said, "I think I will be sorted into Gryffindor. My whole family is in Gryffindor. If I don't go to that academy, I don't know what they will say. But no matter what, please don't sort me into Slytherin Academy." "Is that, sorry, I mean, where you know who stayed?" Harry blurted out. Ronald nodded. "Yes, so I have been praying." "Don't make a mistake." Levin comforted him. "I heard that sorting is more based on your own wishes. If you want to go to Gryffindor, then be firm in your mind, and you will be assigned to Gryffindor when the time comes." Ronald couldn't believe it. "Really? Do you know how to sort them?" "I heard from George and Freddie that they need to go through a difficult test, which is very dangerous. But they refuse to tell me the content." Levin grinned. "This is also a tradition. You will know when the time comes." Ronald had a dark look on his face. The riddler gets out of Hogwarts. After further learning that Levin and Harry had always been in the Muggle world and didn't know much about the magical world, Ronald became happy again and began to popularize science about the two. The main content is still complaining about one's own affairs, and the popularization of science is just incidental. For example, he mentioned Quidditch and then immediately mentioned that he had a flying broomstick, a shooting star. It's not even fast enough to catch up with a butterfly. He also complained that everything he owned was second-hand. His wand belongs to his second brother Charlie. His robe belongs to his eldest brother Bill. His wizard chess piece was left behind by his grandfather. It is considered a family heirloom. The chess pieces often say that they belong to Ronald's grandfather. Even his pet rat Scabbers belongs to Voldemort. Oh no, it should belong to third brother Percy. Levin glanced at his pet rat, Peter, I mean Scabbers. He comforted Ronald. "Actually, you don't have to worry about this. If you really want to compare, I'm even worse off than you. Except for the wand, everything about me is basically bought from second-hand stores. I have no family, and I have to pay back student loans after graduation." When Ronald heard this, he quickly expressed his apologies. But Levin noticed that his face looked much better than before, and his resentment was gone. "Sure enough, that sentence is well said. I am afraid that my brother will suffer hardship, and I am also afraid that my brother will drive a Land Rover. Only when there is comparison will there be a sense of superiority." As the train travels further and farther, the fields passing by outside the car window looked even more desolate. The scenery outside the window gradually transitions from vast fields of farmland to patches of dense woods, winding rivers and dark green hills. It wasn't until the sky completely darkened that Ronald stopped talking. In this regard, Harry is definitely a good listener, as long as you ignore his non-stop talking. Perhaps because of the poor treatment at the Dursleys, Harry made a wave of revenge spending after getting on the train. There were snack bags everywhere on the table, and in front of him was a stack of chocolate frog cards, including several Dumbledore cards. He didn't know whether this was good luck or bad luck. "Hurry up and put on your robe. I just asked the senior, and the train is coming soon." Levin pushed open the carriage door and urged the two people who met each other. He really couldn't stand the talkative Ronald, and he was a little curious about the original character, so he went out for a walk. During this period, he met a girl with fluffy curly hair who was looking for Neville's toad. "This is Hermione, the last member of the Iron Triangle. The girl is just as cute as in the movie. The only problem is that she has a bad temper." As an adult, Levin could tell at a glance that this was simply because she was too strong. In the Muggle world, Hermione has always been regarded as a good student who is smart and eager to learn, and she has always been proud of this. But now that she suddenly entered the magical world, her former arrogance could no longer be maintained. Without knowing the level of others, her pride turned into inferiority. As for the somewhat domineering appearance, it was just a false shell she maintained to protect her self-esteem. When you actually come to Hogwarts and reconfirm your status as a top student, this shell of self-protection will automatically disappear. Since becoming a Shin, Levin's insight into the inner thoughts of others has become increasingly acute. He is confident that he can become an expert in legilimency in the future. Levin easily found Neville's toad with the flying charm. At least in the first grade, he didn't have any troublesome thoughts or desire to socialize with this know-it-all lady. We are still too young now, and just being ordinary friends is enough. If you really want to go further, you have to wait at least 2 or 3 years later. At that time, Hermione will be the most vulnerable and the most suitable to take advantage of it. Levin, you're back. It's a pity that you were away just now. We had a fight with Malfoy. If you were here, we would definitely beat them to a pulp, Ronald complained. Harry also nodded in agreement. Although his friend was not particularly strong, he was indeed good at fighting. He had a deep understanding of this in elementary school. Levin was non-committal about this. If Malfoy really provoked him, he wouldn't mind teaching the ignorant boy a lesson. For these first-year wizards who don't know much about magic, their fists are enough. Several people quickly took off their coats and put on black robes. Ronald's old robe was a bit shorter, and his sneakers were exposed underneath. It seems that one of Ronald's older brothers was not as tall as Ronald is now in first grade. Ronald looked very embarrassed about this, but Levin thought that such a robe was not bad. At least it's convenient for movement. When you open your legs, you don't have to worry about stepping on the corners of your robe and falling. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train and we will take you to school. The announcer's voice echoed on the train. We're about to arrive at the Wizarding World. I'm a little nervous, Harry said dryly, holding his stomach and looking very uncomfortable. He wasn't the only one who was nervous. Even the purer blood Ronald's face turned pale under his freckles. He also recalled the horrifying information his twin brother had given him about how to conduct sorting. In this tense mood, the train slowed down and finally stopped. Chapter 11 The road and ceremony of enrollment passengers pushed and shoved, rushing towards the door and down to a small, dark platform. The chill of the night made Harry, who was next to Levin, shiver. Then a light swayed above the students' heads. Levin heard a rough voice shout, "Freshmen! Freshmen, come over here! Harry, come over here! How are you?" In the sea of thousands of people, Hagrid's bearded face smiled and said hello in a low voice. Levin thought the hybrid giant looked stupid, but most little wizards don't think so. They were intimidated by his abnormal size. After all, these people have not read the original work of Harry Potter. Following Hagrid on a narrow path, a black lake suddenly opened in front of us. On the high hillside on the other side of the lake stands a majestic castle with towering spires and windows twinkling under the stars. They have arrived at the lake, and a row of small canoes are waiting for new life. There was a lot of moss on the stones beside the black lake. Hagrid reminded the freshmen loudly, "Be careful where you step, don't slip." As soon as he finished speaking, 2 students slipped and almost fell into the lake. "Each boat cannot exceed 4 people," Hagrid said loudly, pointing to a group of small boats moored on the shore. Because of his speed, Ronald, who arrived early, had already been taken aboard by others, while Levin quickly occupied the other channel. Harry climbed aboard too. Neville and Hermione looked at Levin, who had helped them just now, breathed a sigh of relief, and climbed up. "Is everyone on board?" Hagrid shouted. The giant was so huge that he had to take a boat to fit himself inside. "Then, let's move forward." Following his call, a group of small boats immediately sailed forward across the mirror-flat lake. Levin remembered that there were mermaids living in this huge black lake. According to legend, all mermaids are as beautiful as flowers, but the natives of Black Lake are an exception. Their appearance cannot be said to be like that of a sunken fish or a fallen geese. At least they are similar to those of mountains and mountains. This may be because fishmen are also divided into models, such as yellow, white, agricultural, etc. In addition, there is a giant squid of unknown origin in the Black Lake. It is said that it is actually Godric Gryffindor who was infected with the blood curse. When you turn this corner, you will soon see Hogwarts for the first time. Hagrid's voice suddenly interrupted Levin's thoughts. Turning around the cliff, you can vaguely see the outline of the castle dotted with lights in the distance. The closer you get, the grander the castle looks. Under the reflection of the lights, it is so magnificent. Hermione whispered, "This is the path that every new student takes. It is said that it allows us to experience the hardships of the founder of Hogwarts in finding the location of the castle. Maybe there are other deeper meanings." Levin has mastered arcane magic. Compared with ordinary wizards, he can feel the essence of the power hidden in the magical performance of magic. At this time, he had noticed something abnormal. He could feel that there was a huge magic power in the distant castle, and an inexplicable connection gradually began to be established between himself and the castle. The freshmen resumed the old path of creating the 4 giants in the college. The essence of this tradition should be an ancient ritual magic. When a student completes the entire process, it means signing a contract with Hogwarts and truly becoming a student of the school. As the fleet gradually approached the cliff where the castle was located, the castle seemed to tower above them. "Lower your head," Hagrid shouted as the first boats approached the cliff. Everyone lowered their heads. The boat took them through the ivy curtain covering the cliff face to the hidden open entrance. Then the little wizards discovered that the only one who really needed to bow his head was Hagrid himself. They followed a dark tunnel that seemed to lead beneath the castle. and finally arrived at a place that resembled an underground dock, and then climbed up onto a ground of gravel and pebbles. Hagrid raised the lantern high. "Everyone, come down, follow me." The freshmen got off the boat and went up a row of more than 200 steep stairs with twists and turns, and then came to an open square surrounded by columns. At the end of the square is the main entrance to Hogwarts. Hagrid stepped forward and raised his fist as big as a sandbag. Dong dong dong. Judging from the sound, this door is indeed thick enough. The door opened, and it was none other than Levin's old acquaintance, Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall introduced the 4 houses of Hogwarts to everyone, and informed that the sorting ceremony would be held shortly. She also talked about the college cup and points, and seemed to be very focused on honor. When Professor McGonagall returned to the auditorium, everyone immediately started talking. Whether they were mole-born or pure-blood, everyone was worried. There are even more divergent opinions about the sorting ceremony. The adults don't seem to want to destroy this mental journey, which is also a rare growth experience. "How could they put us into exactly which house?" Harry asked. "No matter what happens, we won't be forced to drop out of school." Levin comforted him with some empty words, but this only made others more nervous. Personally, Levin has no intention of disrupting this tradition. It's actually quite fun to see other people so nervous. "It was probably through a test." Fred said. "It would hurt us a lot, but I think he was joking." Ronald looked horrified. Hermione had begun to recite the knowledge from the textbook nervously. She was worried that there would be an entrance exam during the sorting ceremony. "Don't worry, you won't be tested on algebra and trigonometry," Levin threatened, successfully getting a blank stare. Levin doesn't have much to worry about himself. As a psychic, he has mastered the Concealed Thoughts spell, which can be compared to the Besticclumency when cast actively. In fact, he uses this spell almost constantly. There is no way. There are too many secrets hidden in his mind. Even if it attracts Dumbledore's attention, it is better than being known to him through time travel. There was no shortage of geniuses in the wizarding world anyway, and he didn't like Gryffindors himself. Flexibly control the effect of hidden thoughts. You can block only part of the memory, allowing Legilimency to only see the part Levin wants others to see. So, what qualities should be revealed and which college should be assigned to? Just as Levin was immersed in his own thoughts, Harry next to him suddenly jumped up. Immediately afterwards, several people screamed loudly from behind. It turns out that the ghosts in the school came out to scare the new students. Suddenly from the wall behind them, about 20 ghosts appeared. These pearly white, translucent ghosts glided across the room, whispering to each other and pretending to be passing by. It wasn't until the students screamed one after another that the ghosts finally showed their faces with satisfaction and floated through the walls. Professor McGonagall also appeared at the right time, as if he was waiting for the ghosts on purpose. She first calmed the frightened students, and then ordered, "Now, line up in single file and follow me." The sorting ceremony is about to begin. Chapter 12. Branching the door opened, and the freshmen filed in with Professor McGonagall, arriving at the highest city in the world, Litang. No, I mean, the auditorium. They could see 4 long tables placed in the middle of the huge auditorium. Students from other grades were sitting around. There are courtyard flags of different colors hanging on the walls. Green snake, blue eagle, red lion, yellow badger. The most surprising and magical thing is the roof. I saw stars twinkling on the velvet black ceiling, which looked exactly like the quiet night sky. Ghosts were also mixed in with the students, shimmering with hazy silver light. Hermione whispered in a low voice as if she was afraid of disturbing something, "I saw this in Hogwarts. A history of the school." Levin nodded. "This is the style of the auditorium ceiling. It looks like there is no ceiling." At the end of the auditorium, there is a professor's table arranged in an arc, and the professors sit in a row. Although he had never met him, based on his characteristics, Levin recognized at a glance that the white beard in the white robe in the middle and the old wizard cosplaying with Gandalf were Dumbledore. He was much taller than others when he was sitting, and his white beard fell down to the table. He looked very old, but he was in good spirits. Next to him, with greasy hair and a daily scowl, was Snape. Sitting on a special booster stool, Flitwick is suspected of being a fairy hybrid. The one with his head wrapped up like Arsene is Quirrell. Characters from novels and movies appeared before my eyes one by one. Even though Levin is an adult, he is also a little excited inside. Professor McGonagall held a piece of parchment and said loudly, "The classmate whose name I called," sat down on the chair and put the hat on his head. Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by another voice. The sorting hat on the high-backed stool twisted, and the wrinkles on it turned into eyes and mouth, and then he sang. This is a legend that spans thousands of years, describing 4 wizards with powerful minds and wise minds. A brave Gryffindor from the barren swamps, beautiful Ravenclaw from a peaceful lake, merciful Hufflepuff from the wide valley, shrewd Slytherin from that quagmire. They vowed to impart what they had learned throughout their lives, and wizards came from far and wide to make their ambitions stronger, until this castle stood on the shores of the Black Lake. The little wizards were naturally stunned. It was the first time I saw a singing hat. Levin clapped his hands perfunctorily. "Nice singing. Don't sing it next time." Professor McGonagall was not surprised by this kind of thing. After listening patiently, he read the list. Tom Abbott. Yes, the Iron Hat King quickly ran up and nervously put the sorting hat on his head. His little head couldn't hold up the sorting hat at all, and even covered his eyes. Hufflepuff. After about 4 or 5 seconds, the sorting hat said loudly. Hufflepuff's little badgers clapped their hands to welcome her. Before taking her seat, she waved to Levin, who was not far away. They met during the summer vacation. Next are Susan Burns, Terry Boot. All familiar names. Everyone's sorting time is long or short. Some were assigned as soon as they were put on. Some results only come after a minute or two. Levin felt a little guilty. After all, the sorting hat must have some legilimate ability, or the ability to identify a wizard's character. Levin Green. Not long after Hermione Granger was assigned to Gryffindor, it was Levin's turn. He walked towards the four-corner stool calmly, hoping that he could deceive this self-proclaimed thoughtful hat. Professor McGonagall glanced at Levin and was clearly impressed by him. Among the students in this class, he was the only one from a poor family. Levin nodded to Professor McGonagall, put on his hat and sat on the chair. When the dirty hat was placed on his soft black hair, Levin held the hat slightly uncomfortably, trying to keep the dirty hat from touching the skin of his face. Well, I feel your talent. This kind of powerful magic is very rare among young wizards of your age. Which academy should I sign you to? It's hard to choose. There seems to be a power that's affecting my understanding of you. Upon hearing this, Levin carefully controlled the shield of hidden thoughts, and quietly opened a small corner, revealing the side he designated. At that moment, Levin felt that the hat was confused for a moment. Hey, that's not right. I feel your intelligence. You pursue knowledge and can skillfully handle all the problems you encounter. Then you should be assigned to Ravenclaw. The sorting hat yelled at the top of his lungs. There was some polite applause in the auditorium. However, the Ravenclaw seniors applauded sincerely. Levin's arrival means that their academy has a handsome boy. Professor McGonagall was still a little regretful that Levin could not be assigned to Gryffindor. After all, she quite admired this little guy who was self-reliant and self-reliant. Levin waved to Harry and the others before sitting on Ravenclaw's table. Along the way, a group of people nodded or greeted me. Ronald was in the crowd and whispered to Harry, "It's a pity that Levin didn't get the Gryffindor." Harry whispered back, "This doesn't affect us being friends, does it?" After Levin sat down, he felt relieved. He successfully deceived the sorting hat and prevented it from detecting the secret of his rebirth. This shows that the shielding effect of hidden thoughts is effective and he does not need to worry too much about Dumbledore. As for why he chose Ravenclaw, it also has something to do with his pursuit. The literal translation of Ravenclaw, is Raven's Claw, and the hidden meaning of the name is Greedy Plunderer, which means the thirst for knowledge. Ravenclaw's motto is, "We come from the lakeside, we are wise and knowledgeable, we love studying, we are different from ordinary people, we are far-sighted, we are Ravenclaw." Rowena Ravenclaw, the founder of this college, also has a famous saying, "Extraordinary intelligence is the greatest wealth of mankind." For a mage under the arcane magic system, it is self-evident that knowledge equals power. Therefore, among the 4 major houses of Hogwarts, only Ravenclaw is more in line with Levin's philosophy. Unfortunately, Ravenclaw's presence in the original novel is not strong. To make matters worse, none of the outstanding students mentioned in the original novel attended her college. The 3 protagonists are all from Gryffindor. The most brilliant professors at Hogwarts, Dumbledore and McGonagall, are from Gryffindor. Master of Dark Arts Voldemort from Slytherin, Potions Master Snape from Slytherin. If Grindelwald had studied at Hogwarts, Levin is 100% sure that he would have been sorted into Slytherin. As for the Goblet of Fire's designated Hogwarts' finest student, Cedric Diggory, he's a Hufflepuff. Among the celebrities in Ravenclaw, apart from Luna, is Janku, who is also famous as Harry Potter's ex-girlfriend. It can only be said that highlighting one is only superficial. But there is nothing wrong with Ravenclaw. As the saying goes, longing for knowledge, longing for knowledge, longing for knowledge, only the Holy Raven. Don't be trapped. What's more, there are so many beauties in Ravenclaw, at least you don't have to worry about finding a partner here. Until then, a burst of cheers interrupted his thoughts. If Harry Potter studied at Dragon Kingdom University, how would he be sorted into different schools? Harry Potter. Harry walked forward and sat on the triangular stool. Professor McGonagall placed the huge sorting hat on his head. "Well, you are very brave and smart. I think you are suitable for materials science." The voice of the sorting hat appeared in Harry's mind. "No biochemical ring materials ... No biochemical ring materials." Harry thought silently in his mind. "Don't you want biochemical environmental materials? You can obviously make great achievements. But since you have made up your mind, then go to the School of Civil Engineering." At the same time, Professor McGonagall announced the result, and Harry collapsed on the floor as if his soul had been sucked out. Chapter 13 Cirila. We got Potter. We got Potter. When the sorting hat announced Harry's house, the cheers from the Gryffindor table filled the entire auditorium. The little lions rushed to shake Harry's hand and were proud of it. Ronald was sorted into the second-to-last house, and he was also sorted into Gryffindor. His brothers were particularly happy for this and applauded wildly. which softened his blue face. Levin looked towards the long table next door. Harry and Ronald both looked at him with regretful expressions. Regarding this matter, Levin thinks it's okay. The only thing to consider is what Dumbledore thinks. In Levin's view, this greatest white wizard is good at everything, but he is too concerned about the opposition between good and evil, so that he will do many things that are not consistent with his status as a principal. For example, his attitude towards black magic. For example, the setting of restricted book areas in libraries. For example, obviously favoring Harry, such as arranging big adventures for Harry year after year. In Levin's eyes, Dumbledore was worthy of being the greatest white wizard, but he was not a qualified headmaster. It's a pity that people are under the roof. As long as Levin is at Hogwarts, he is inevitably subject to Dumbledore's interference. But there is no way to avoid this. Levin knew very well that what Dumbledore cared about most was the prophecy about Harry and Voldemort. He will not tolerate anyone interfering with the advancement of the prophecies. Although I accidentally came into contact with Harry in elementary school, but as long as she maintains normal communication with Harry in school and doesn't have too much contact with him, Dumbledore probably didn't think he would have any influence on the prophecy. Then he will naturally not interfere with himself more. After all, when he arrived at Hogwarts and the magical world, Levin planned to live his own life. Instead of being arranged to be the protagonist's little follower, Levin has no intention of keeping a low profile at school. Hogwarts is a school after all, and teachers always like to give the green light to top students, don't they? Do you know Harry Potter over there? A boy's voice suddenly sounded next to him. Yes. Levin didn't explain too much. He slowly lowered his gaze and turned around to look over. The owner of the voice was a brown-haired boy. His eyes had been attracted to the food on the table, and he was staring at a plate of fish soup in a daze. Are you hungry? The little wizard always saves face and does not want to be treated as a greedy cat. This kind of naked greedy expression is indeed a bit strange. Yes, I forgot to bring my pocket money, so I didn't eat anything on the train, the boy said and swallowed again. My name is Levin Green. Nice to meet you. Levin reached out his hand. My name is Stephen Cornfoot. Levin recalled that the name did exist in the original work, but apart from his name, the other party has no role in the original work. But just such a passerby NPC, now actually appeared in front of him. For a time, Levin's understanding of the world deepened a lot. You will feel more and more integrated into this world, but the impact of your arrival on this world will gradually appear, and the abnormalities caused by you will gradually be revealed. My arrival has an impact on this world. What impact? Why didn't I notice it? Just when Levin was puzzled by this, Albus Dumbledore stood up. It's time for the principal to speak. In his previous life, Levin had specified that he should eat something first to fill his stomach. But that doesn't have to be the case at Hogwarts. Dumbledore looked at the students with a smile on his face, stretched out his arms to them, and said loudly, "Welcome everyone to start the new school year at Hogwarts. Before the banquet begins, I want to say a few words. That is, idiot, cry, residue, screw it. Thank you everyone." This strange congratulation left everyone confused, but Levin had heard some speculation. By stupid, I mean Ravenclaw, the wizard of this house who is usually the smartest and thinks that students in other houses are stupid fools. Cry-nose. The word cry-nose is also usually used to refer to fat. Unfriendly children use this word to insult and look down on their peers who are fatter and less physically fit. Most of those Gryffindor students consider themselves brave and think that other houses none of the students are as brave as them. Scrap. This term also refers to the leftover pieces of cloth that are too small to be used to make useful items. Slytherin students are pure-blood advocates who value integrity and unity. In the eyes of Slytherins, students from other colleges are not pure wizards, but useless scraps. Twist. Hufflepuff students have nothing to do with the previous three. They are not smart or brave, and there are a lot of half-blood Melbourne little wizards, but they can always screw everyone together. If you think about it this way, the intention of this good principal is to remind students from different colleges to avoid stereotypes and unite. But he himself did not do this at all. From this perspective, it is fortunate that Levin was not assigned to Slytherin. Then, Levin noticed that Stephen next to him suddenly widened his eyes. In the blink of an eye, the originally empty long table was filled with delicious food, so much so that Levin could almost say, "There are roast beef, roast chicken, honey-glazed chicken legs, honey-glazed pork ribs, pork chops, lamb chops, steaks, sausages, boiled potatoes, baked potatoes, potato chips, mashed potatoes, fried potatoes with tomato sauce, and Yorkshire pudding, pea shoots, carrots, broth, pumpkin juice, orange juice, pumpkin pie, pork pie, apple pie and peppermint candies." A large number of delicacies immediately enlivened the atmosphere. Everyone drank and drank together, which was very enjoyable. Stephen almost immediately started cooking like crazy. Levin naturally doesn't give in too much either. Sadly, this was the most sumptuous meal he had eaten since time travel. Halfway through eating, Stephen suddenly stretched out his head. "Levin, why do you eat with two wands?" The other eaglets around him also looked at him. "Levin, this is not a magic wand, it's chopsticks. As a Chinese, it makes sense for me to eat with chopsticks. If you don't believe me, asked the senior sister. Levin pointed in the direction of a beautiful Asian senior, Jiangku. The girl nodded. So you are also Chinese. Levin is right. My mother also taught me to eat with chopsticks when I was at home. The meal lasted about half an hour. Just as Levin was holding his belly with satisfaction, the leftovers on the table disappeared. Then came the dessert! Various flavors of pudding, ice cream, apple pie, syrup pie, chocolate sponge cake, fried jam donuts, wine-soaked jam pudding, strawberry, jelly, rice pudding. Levin and Stephen wailed at the same time. These two foodies had stuffed their stomachs full just now, and they did not expect that there would be a wave of desserts. The result is that they see every dessert is so tempting, but they can't eat anything anymore. During dessert time, there was a little chaos on the Gryffindor table. The Gryffindor ghost nearly headless Nick suddenly emerged from the table. The bloody scene scared the little lions so much that they almost vomited on the spot. Finally, dessert time is over. Dumbledore began to make his final speech. Now that everyone has eaten and drank enough, I want to say a few more words to you. At the beginning of the semester, I want to put forward a few things to pay attention to. Attention first-year students. Students are prohibited from entering the woods on campus. Some of our classmates from the old class should also remember this. As he said this, Dumbledore glanced towards the Weasley brothers. Furthermore, the administrator, Mr. Filch, also asked me to remind everyone not to cast magic in the corridors between classes. The review of Quidditch players will be held in the second week of this semester. Students who are interested in participating in the house team, please contact Mrs. Hooch. Finally, I must tell everyone that anyone who does not want to suffer an accident and die in pain should not enter the corridor on the right side of the fourth floor. Levin had a dark look on his face after hearing this. If there's any way to make everyone want to do something, the best way is to ban it. This old bee did it entirely on purpose. If you don't want people to go there, just seal the corridor and that's it. Now, before everyone goes to bed, let's sing the school song together. After Dumbledore said loudly, the expressions of all the teachers and the most of the old students seemed to become stiffer. Dumbledore flicked his wand, and a long golden ribbon flew out of the wand, twisting and coiling like a snake above the high dining table, forming lines of text. Each person chooses a tune he likes, Dumbledore said. Get ready and sing. The Weasley twins are worthy of being the troublemakers that Dumbledore must take care of. Originally, everyone was in a mess. They used the tune of a funeral march to successfully lead everyone further. Everyone finally finished singing the school song and lined up to leave the auditorium under the leadership of the prefect. Just then, Levin saw a face in the crowd. That's a face that shouldn't be here. Grey hair, green eyes, a high forehead, neat eyebrows, and a handsome face. The only thing to worry about is that there is a scar missing from her eye. In shock, Levin couldn't help shouting the other party's name. Cirila. Chapter 14 Ravenclaw Lounge. I heard someone calling me. The grey-haired girl turned around and glanced at Levin in surprise. She seemed to be curious as to why this new student, whom she had never met before, knew her. When their eyes met, Levin immediately realized his gaffe. At the same time, he could also observe the girl more carefully. The girl is about 14 or 15 years old, and seems to be in the same grade as the prefect Penlo Cravat. The two are walking side by side at the forefront of Ravenclaw and seem to have a good relationship. When he saw Cirilla's face from the front, Levin felt that she was indeed very similar to Ciri in The Witcher 3 Inches, but she was much younger. Plus her reaction when she heard Cirila, Levin is basically certain that the person in front of him is the lion cub of Sintra, daughter of the White Wolf, daughter of time and space, possessor of the ancient blood, Cirila Fiona Ellen Renlun. But the question is, why did she appear in Hogwarts? This is not Kea Morin. Levin had never heard of rumors about sorceresses and demon hunters in the magical world, but thinking about Ciri, that is, Cirila, the ancient blood gave her the ability to travel through time and space. According to the setting in the Witcher novel, Ciri even traveled to Venice and Poland in the Middle Ages, Britain in the Industrial Age and other places, and met Galahad, King Arthur's Holy Grail Knight. Could it be that she traveled to Hogwarts by herself? Levin couldn't help but frown, sensing something was wrong. With her country and family ruined, if it was because of her ability to travel through time, it would be impossible for her to stay in Otherworld and attend classes with peace of mind. Suddenly, Levin remembered his epiphany. The abnormalities caused by you will gradually be revealed. Is this the impact I have on the world? Thinking of this, Levin felt that the mystery of everything became even greater. After exchanging glances with Shiri, Levin made no further contact with the senior. He doesn't plan to reveal that he knows the other person before he gets to know him well. Otherwise, many things cannot be explained. Amid various thoughts, Levin followed the team towards the lounge. Ravenclaw's lounge is further away than the other three houses. It is not built near the main tower courtyard, but on the tower on the other side of the astronomical tower complex. To get there, you need to cross a stone bridge. In front of the tower, Prefect Penlo Cravat introduced. The ever-changing staircases in Hogwarts were suggested and designed by Rowena Ravenclaw, one of the founders of the college. Everyone, please be careful when going upstairs. Don't go in the wrong direction. Our common room and dormitories are on the west side of the castle. There is still a way to go, so be careful where you step. She was right, you really had to be very careful walking on the tower stairs. The stairs here are constantly changing. For example, under their feet, the stairs are generated in real time as the team continues to advance. Where no one has set foot, the tower is empty. As he walked, Levin felt troubled. Indeed, both Raven and Eagle must live in high places. But little wizards are still human after all. There's no need to make Ravenclaw's lounge so high, right? Before Levin could grow impatient, they finally climbed up the tall tower and reached the entrance to the common room. The entrance is at the top of Ravenclaw Tower, and you can see an old, smooth wooden board at a glance. There is a huge bronze door knocker in the shape of an eagle. Penlo, who was first, knocked on the door knocker 3 times. The door knocker made a magnetic and mysterious sound. I only work under pressure, only I can hurt myself. Who am I? Diamond. Almost immediately, Penlo gave the answer, but she did not enter immediately. Instead, she turned around and explained to the freshmen, in fact, you will find that the lounges in other colleges have fixed passwords, but we do not. As long as you can answer the questions on the door knocker correctly, you can get in. Don't worry, the door knocker will not ask rigid logic questions, but some philosophical questions. These questions do not have a fixed standard answer, as long as there are reasons that can convince it. You can come in, but there is no need to worry about safety, because in nearly 1,000 years, no outsider has been able to pass through this simple barrier except us Ravenclaw ourselves. After hearing this, Levin couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Although Ravenclaw prefers smart people, there is no guarantee that all smart people will be assigned to Ravenclaw. The intelligence of the Eagles crushes other colleges. For example, Hermione, a true academic master, was assigned to Gryffindor. If no outsiders have entered for 1,000 years, how can the Eagle Ring ensure that only people from Ravenclaw can answer the questions correctly? Maybe the Eagle Ring itself has the ability to identify incoming people. If you meet an outsider, the question will be very difficult. And when it comes to Ravenclaw, the difficulty is very easy. Don't be afraid of the Eagle Ring's questions. We at Ravenclaw are good at learning. You will soon learn to enjoy the challenges set by the Eagle Ring. It is not uncommon for more than 10 or 20 students from different grades to try to answer the questions of the day. This is also a good opportunity for you to meet classmates from other grades. The female prefect continued to introduce. But this challenge can be a little annoying when you forget the books or Quidditch uniforms you're going to use for the day. Therefore, I suggest you double-check your bags before leaving Ravenclaw Tower. She finally opened the door and motioned for the little wizards to enter. Ravenclaw's common room is a large circular room with elegant arched windows on the walls hung with blue and bronze silks. Through the windows, you can see the beautiful scenery outside. The ceiling is a dome, dotted with stars, and the dark blue carpet below is also dotted with stars, making it appear profound, mysterious, and unpredictable. There are large tables, chairs, and rows of bookshelves in the room. In the niche opposite the door is a white marble bust of Rowena Ravenclaw, a woman with both beauty and wisdom. A door next to the statue leads to the dormitories above. Through the arched windows of the circular common room, you can see the entire Hogwarts campus, the Black Lake, the Forbidden Forest, the Quidditch pitch and the greenhouse. No other house enjoys this view. Ravenclaw has another cool element. Our guys are very egotistical, some would even call them eccentric. But genius is often out of step with the norm. And unlike some academies, we think you can wear whatever you want, clothes you like, believe whatever you want, say whatever you please. We don't resent people who are different, on the contrary, we appreciate them. Levin suddenly remembered Luna, the crazy girl who will enter school next year. She was often bullied because of her weirdness. So appreciating the alien is just a one-sided statement? Or is the crazy girl so weird that even Ravenclaw can't stand it? Speaking of outliers, you'll like our dean, Professor Phileas Flitwick. People often underestimate him because he's really short and has a high-pitched voice, but he's the best and the most knowledgeable alive in the world. Professor of Charms. Many of us also think he has fairy blood, but please don't ask him rudely. His office door is always open to any Ravenclaw with a problem, and if you're unhappy, he'll release those delicious little pocket cakes hidden in the tin can in his desk drawer and let them dance in front of you. It's really worth trying to pretend you're unhappy so you can watch the cakes jive. Ravenclaw has a rich history. Most of the great wizarding inventors and innovators came from our academy, including Pope Vancourt, the inventor of the Mintscope, Laverne de Montmorency, the great apothecary who invented many love potions, Ignatia Wildsmith, inventor of flu powder. There are also famous ministers of magic who were born in Ravenclaw, including Millicent Bagner. He happened to be in office the night Harry Potter escaped from the Dark Lord's death curse. He used his own words to defend the celebration of wizards across the UK. I insist that the celebration is our inalienable right. And Minister Lorcan MacLeod. He's a pretty clever wizard, but he prefers to communicate with people by breathing smoke from the tip of his wand. Of course, I've said before that we produce weird people. In fact, we also contributed to the wizarding world the weird Ulrich who wore a jellyfish as a hat. He is a classic punchline in many wizard jokes. As for our relationship with the other 3 colleges, you've most likely heard of Slytherins. They're not all bad, but you should be wary until you get to know them. Their long-standing house tradition is to win at any cost, so please take note. especially at Quidditch and exams. The Gryffindors aren't bad. If I have any problem with them, it's that Gryffindors like to show off too much. They are also much less tolerant of aliens than we are. In fact, they even laugh at some who are interested in ascension, or the magical functions of drow eggs, or omenology, which is the use of eggs for divination. Method: a curious Ravenclaw. Gryffindors don't share our intellectual curiosity, and for us, if you're willing to sit in the corner of the common room all day and night, cracking eggs, and recording your predictions based on the different ways the yolks fall, that's totally not the case. A question, and you'll likely find someone willing to help you. As for the Hufflepuffs, no one could say they weren't friendly people. They are arguably the nicest group of people in school. Suffice it to say, when it comes to competition in exams, you don't have to worry too much about them. I think that's all. Oh, by the way, the ghost of our college is Miss Grey. Others think she never speaks, but she will occasionally be willing to talk to us Ravenclaws. She is the daughter of Miss Rowena Ravenclaw, the founder of Hogwarts. She is a very beautiful lady. It is said that she has something to do with Bloody Barrow. Of course we will never ask her. She's especially helpful when you're lost or can't find something. Finally, I'll say it again, congratulations on becoming one of the smartest, sharpest and funniest Hogwarts houses. The female prefect finished this series of introductions as if she was giving an endorsement, and went into the girls' dormitory with Xiri. Levin and the freshmen began to choose their dormitories. Levin casually found a bed of his own, sharing the dormitory with Stephen Cornford from before, and Kevin Entwistle, another Ravenclaw passerby NPC in the original book. They said goodnight to each other and quickly fell asleep. Chapter 15. Getting Rich starts by selling the Room of Requirement. The next morning, Levin's biological clock woke him up from a deep sleep. Before leaving the dormitory, Levin checked the class schedule. There are 8 courses in total this term: Transfiguration, Charms, Potions, History of Magic, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Astronomy, Herbology and Flying. Basically there are 2 classes in the morning and 1 class in the afternoon. Of course, astronomy is an exception. Its classes are only held at night. After all, it is impossible to ask the little wizard to look at the stars in broad daylight. The best thing is that the first class starts at 9 o'clock every morning, avoiding the rush of breakfast. Lunch is from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. The dinner time is longer, lasting from 4 to 7 o'clock, because there can be at most 2 classes in the afternoon. Moreover, there are no classes on Friday afternoon, and Saturday and Sunday are 2 consecutive days off. Such a generous time arrangement will make Mole Junior High School students cry. Hogwarts implements a 3-term system, and the 3 holidays are Christmas, Easter and summer vacation. After quietly dressing and washing, Levin left the Ravenclaw Tower with his textbooks. He didn't rush to get breakfast, but set out to find the place he looked forward to most in all of Hogwarts: the Room of Requirement. This is the most mysterious place in Hogwarts, also known as the Coming and Going Room. Legend has it that it comes and goes, and one can only enter when one really needs it. When it appears, it is always arranged to suit the needs of the seeker. At the same time, the Room of Requirement and the people in it cannot be displayed on the Marauder's map, and the names of those who enter will disappear directly from the map. If you can find it, it means that you will have a private enough room where you can safely study some magic beyond this world without worrying too much about the probing eyes of others. I have to say that Hogwarts Legacy restored this school well. At least the main areas and roads are correct, as Levin himself can prove. If not for this, Levin almost got lost. There are a total of 142 stairs in Hogwarts. Some of them are wide and large, others are narrow, small, and wobbly. At certain times, some stairs will lead to different places, which is even more punctual than my aunt's arrival. Halfway up some stairs, a step will suddenly disappear. If you don't react, you will miss the step and fall straight down. The special magic will ensure that the little wizards land safely, but this means that you have to climb back from the first floor again. Plus, there are many doors at Hogwarts that won't open if you ask them to open them rudely, or poke them in the right place. There are also doors that are not real doors at all, just solid walls that look like doors. It's hard to remember what is where because everything seems to be constantly moving. The people in the portraits are constantly visiting each other, and even the armor can walk. It is said that it was Ravenclaw herself who came up with this design, and her purpose was to dissuade those students who are not very smart. According to the impression in his memory, he came to the Black Magic Defense Tower and went all the way up to the 8th floor. In the corridor in front of the stairs leading to the planetarium, the tapestry of Troll fighting the silly Barnabas was the Room of Requirement. On the opposite side of it, in front of the tapestry, Levin skillfully mobilized his spiritual power and cleared away the complicated thoughts. He only thought, I need a place to hide things. Then he walked 3 times between the wall in front of the tapestry. At some point, a very smooth door suddenly appeared on the wall. Levin quickly walked in, and after closing the door, he didn't forget to look out through the gap. It was pitch black, and he couldn't see anything. It seemed that after closing the door, the Room of Requirement was disconnected from the corridor. Levin believes that this Room of Requirement is not in the same phase as Hogwarts, but is more likely to be a real alien space. Only through the user's wish can it be connected to Hogwarts. The space knowledge involved is far beyond what Levin can understand. He can only judge that the principle here has nothing to do with the so-called traceless telescopic spell, but is closer to the various demiplanes created in arcane magic. The place was as big as a church, and the surrounding scenery looked like a city. Those high walls were made of thousands of things hidden by students who are no longer alive: bottles, hats, boxes, chairs, books, weapons, brooms, bats. All the items that have been cleared by the vanishing curse in Hogwarts for thousands of years are placed here. Levin knew that one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, Ravenclaw's diadem, was also hidden here. Legend has it that those who wear the crown can gain access to the Ravenclaw's wisdom. But he did not set out to find the crown. He won't do it until he has enough ability to protect himself. The main purpose of his coming here today is to visit. According to his observation, although the old things here are seriously damaged, most of them can be repaired through their repair spell. Sure enough, my previous idea is feasible. When I have time in the future, I can select some suitable old objects here, repair them with a repair spell, collect them, and sell them in Diagon Alley during the summer vacation. Anyway, so many things are sitting here for nothing. No one will care about them at all. It's better to give me an advantage. This way, I don't need to work for that little money anymore. Although he can learn a lot while working, Levin is not a masochist after all. Since you can learn magic through study and experimentation, there is no need to tire yourself out. The plan was made. Levin got out of the door. There is no way to go here or to the various classrooms and the common rooms of the 4 colleges, so I am not afraid of being seen. He came all the way to the auditorium, where breakfast had already begun. Levin, come here. He saw Harry waving to him, and Levin pointed to the Ravenclaw logo on his robes. He reluctantly rejected him and walked to the long table belonging to the Ravenclaws. Roommates Stephen and Kevin were already there eating and drinking. What's James's first secret lesson? Steve asked as he chewed on a German sausage. The first class is Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration class. It's a 2-hour class with Gryffindor, Levin said while putting bacon into toast. In the first year course, there are 3 classes of herbal medicine every week. This is to facilitate the observation of the different growth stages of herbs. Charms, Transfiguration, Potions, History of Magic and Defense Against the Dark Arts are all taught twice a week. Both flying lessons and astronomy only have 1 class period. At this moment, there was a pop, pop, pop sound in the sky above the auditorium. Many owls flew into the auditorium, and it was time to deliver letters. Levin's Herma also flew in front of him, fanning himself. The brown eagle owl did not bring a letter. No one would send a letter to Levin. It seemed to just follow its peers to join in the fun. Levin waved his wand and caught Homer before it fell into his creamy soup. He then tore off a few pieces of bacon and handed them to his mouth. After eating and drinking, the little guy jumped on Levin's shoulder and used his oily beak to tidy up his hair intimately. At this moment, students screamed from the other side of the auditorium, "Oh my God! Someone is trying to rob Gringotts." What happened? What happened? Immediately, several young wizards gathered around him. It turns out that someone subscribed to the Daily Prophet, and according to reports, Gringotts in Diagon Alley was stolen. A dark wizard has broken into the Gringotts vault, but the goblins claim the thief failed to steal anything and was almost caught. However, they failed to catch the thief in the end, so it caused a lot of discussion. Levin reacted immediately. Isn't that about the Philosopher's Stone? Fairies are indeed unreliable. The farce ended quickly. Levin and his roommates got up and walked towards the Transfiguration classroom. Chapter 16 Top students in Magic High School. When Levin came to the Transfiguration classroom, there were still a few minutes before class started. Many students were already sitting in the classroom. They were discussing topics related to Transfiguration with great interest. No one paid attention to the tabby cat on the podium. Levin, we can sit a little further back, so that the chance of being called on by the professor will be reduced. Huh? Why are you covering my mouth? As soon as Stephen opened his mouth, Levin covered his mouth. He noticed that the cat on the podium glanced at them. Only when Levin pulled him to sit down did Steve realize something was wrong. You have been looking at that cat. Is there something wrong with that cat? That's Professor McGonagall. She is one of only 7 animagus registered by the Ministry of Magic in the 20th century. Levin explained. Wow, how did you find out? Kevin admired. Pay attention, the lines on the cat's eyes are exactly the same as those of glasses, and Professor McGonagall wears glasses. In addition, the cat has always maintained a sitting position, neither licking its fur, nor grinding its claws, nor wagging its ears or tail. It belongs to she can't do any of the little tricks a cat can do. Levin's calm analysis made his friends look at him with more admiration. Finally, and most importantly, it was Professor McGonagall who was in charge of my enrollment during the summer, and she transformed into a cat right in front of me. Well, after working on it for a long time, it turns out you saw it with your own eyes. The two of them were speechless for a moment. Realizing that Professor McGonagall was on the podium, they became uncomfortable, fearing that they would be blamed by the professor for doing something wrong. At the same time, they looked at the little wizards who took advantage of the teacher's absence to cause mischief and misfortune. After a while, another acquaintance came to the classroom. It was Hermione. The little girl was obviously a cat slave. After she came in, She even tried to stroke the cat's head, but as soon as he reached out, Professor McGonagall dodged it nimbly. Poor little girl, how would you react if you found out that you actually wanted to touch the professor's head? Levin was already anticipating the change in the other person's expression. Another 5 minutes passed and class time had begun, but Professor McGonagall still maintained his cat posture. 2 more people rushed into the classroom. Harry, great. Fortunately, Professor McGonagall hasn't arrived yet, Ronald said happily. Harry nodded, smiling in relief. At this moment, the British Shorthair cat on the podium jumped forward gracefully and transformed into Professor McGonagall before landing. This sudden change made both Ronald and Harry open their mouths in surprise. It's really amazing. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Weasley. Maybe I should turn Mr. Potter or you into a pocket watch, so that one of you can keep time. Transfiguration. Professor Minerva McGonagall stared with serious eyes behind her glasses. Talk to them. We're lost. Harry felt a little aggrieved. Then I should turn you into a map? I believe you don't need a map to find your seat, right? The 2 dejectedly obeyed Professor McGonagall's instructions and sat down obediently. As for poor Hermione Granger, she was still too stunned to admit what she had almost done. As the students looked on, Professor McGonagall tapped the table with her wand. Transfiguration is the most complicated and dangerous course for your first year, so I don't want anyone to cause trouble in class. Otherwise I will ask him to go out and never come back. I hope you can keep it in mind. As he spoke, McGonagall waved his hand. Look at this. A glass cover flew over. Nestled in the cover is a box with 4 toad legs. This is a mistake made by a young wizard in the past. He turned his pet toad into this shape, and it will never change back. For those students who do not understand the complexity and danger of transfiguration, it's a good warning. You don't want something weird growing on your body, right? Everyone nodded quickly and couldn't help but feel cold in their hearts. Levin heard Ronald murmuring to Peter the mouse in his pocket. No, it was Scabbers. Don't worry, I will never turn you into that. That's right, because the cup and the box are 2 different things. On the podium, Professor McGonagall officially started class. Everyone, please turn to the first page of the Elementary Transfiguration Guide. Today we will talk about the basic principles of transfiguration. Levin took out a pen and notebook and cast a scribe on the pen. The pen immediately flew into the air and automatically recorded Professor McGonagall's lecture in the notebook. It was so convenient that Steve on the side frequently looked sideways. There, scribe, in arcane magic is much more convenient than the shorthand quill in this world. After all, the former is just a 0-level trick, while the latter is an expensive magic item, so they are completely different. Levin suddenly thought that maybe it would be a good business to make a shorthand pen by fixing the scribe technique on the pen. Well, let's record it for now. Out of curiosity about the art of transfiguration, the students were very fascinated by the lecture and wanted to start learning right away, but they soon understood that it would take a long time to turn furniture into animals. Levin himself naturally realized something. You have listened to the introductory course of transfiguration, and have a deep understanding of transfiguration, and your expertise in the Transfiguration School has improved. You have understood the power of change from transfiguration, you have understood the magic, bear's tenacity, ox's power, cat's elegance, eagle's majesty, fox's cunning, and owl's wisdom. The above 6 magics are classic attribute enhancement spells in the magic of the Transfiguration School, which can respectively improve the durability, strength, agility, charm, perception, and intelligence of the recipient. After half an hour of theoretical class, Professor McGonagall began to assign tasks. That is to let the little wizards try to turn matches into needles. She gave everyone a match and everyone started trying. Everyone is a new wizard, and they have a poor grasp of their own magic power. In this case, even spells with clear spells as guidance are not very easy to use. Not to mention a spell system like Transfiguration that relies entirely on will and imagination. The little wizards waved their wands and pointed at the matches, but most of the matches showed no respect at all and could not even move, let alone transform. Of course, there are also students whose matches are responsive, such as, stab it. Levin heard a faint explosion, followed by a strong smell of sulfur. Looking back, Seamus Finnegan's match had been burned into a ball of ashes. He is indeed the explosive genius in the world of Harry Potter. However, this task does not trouble Levin, who has just upgraded his talent in the School of Change. For the first time, Levin turned a match into a wooden needle. The second time, the wooden needle completely transformed into a metal needle, indistinguishable from a real needle. It's really good. Very few little wizards can achieve this level in the first lesson. 5 points for Ravenclaw. Professor McGonagall was a little surprised by Levin's performance. Young wizards who successfully completed the challenge in the first class were not too rare in her educational career, but they did exist. But most of those people came from wizarding families and had the conditions to stay at home, practice ahead of time. But he knew very well that Levin was definitely not one of them. This child had not been exposed to the wizarding world until this summer vacation. From this point of view, his talent is far beyond his imagination. Mr. Green, why don't you demonstrate it to everyone? The freshman stared at Levin with keen eyes. Levin was calm and composed, and turned another match into a pin on the spot. The flammable match heads were turned into round white needles. The scene drew a round of applause. Professor McGonagall became increasingly aware of the talent of the little wizard in front of him. By the end of Get Out of Class, apart from Levin, only Hermione Granger and the other two Ravenclaws had successfully made some changes in the matches. Chapter 17 Levin's Small GoalBefore Get Out of Class ended, McGonagall left a 7-inch piece of homework. They are also asked to practice more after class and see everyone's progress in the next class. After waving a wand for a lesson, for young wizards, the transformation skills may not have improved, and their arms may have become thicker. Levin saw Ronald's face drop, and while packing his things, Levin complained, "I suspect there's something wrong with my match. It hasn't changed." Harry also spread his hands helplessly. "My match just turned over." They all turned to Levin and looked at him with resentful eyes. That resentment comes from the resentment of poor students towards top students. "We share a compartment on the train. Why are you the only one so good?" Levin shuddered. He knew very well that there was a sadly thick barrier between him and Harry. "There is Charms class at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so I will take it with Slytherin this time." In fact, all the courses in the curriculum are taken together by the two colleges, and the combination of each class is different, ensuring that students from the 4 colleges always have several classes together in a week. Levin believes that this is intended to allow students from the 4 colleges to interact with each other. After all, Hogwarts' method of dividing schools into schools based on personality rather than majors can easily cause young wizards to form groups and become hostile to each other. Hogwarts is the epitome of the entire British wizarding world. Mutual hostility is very detrimental to unity. Therefore, it is necessary to strengthen the connection between the little wizards by taking classes together. The Charms classroom is in the left-hand corridor on the 4th floor. On the way they are not surprised to see the school administrator Filch and his cat Mrs. Norris. Because the corridor on the right side of the 4th floor is a restricted area, Filch would patrol here every 2 days in order to catch a few trespassing young wizards. No one wanted to be locked up, so everyone turned left obediently. The desks in the classroom are arranged in 2 rows, and the little wizards sit opposite each other. Filius Flivi, head of Ravenclaw and Professor of Charms at Hogwarts, was so short that he had to stand on a stack of books to reach the desk during class. Everyone suspected that he had fairy blood, but it is undeniable that this short professor is proficient in all kinds of magic spells, and it is said that he won the duel championship when he was young. Levin fully believes in this. After all, his size has an inherent advantage. It is difficult to aim. Just like what the female prefect introduced her to, Dean Flitwick is a humorous person. When he read Harry's name, he immediately screamed with excitement and fell off the pile of books at his feet. "Okay, students, please turn to the first chapter of Standard Spells, Elementary. Let's briefly talk about the principles of magic." Professor Flitwick's voice was a bit shrill, but it was not easy to ignore. Unlike arcane mages, wizards have a one-sided understanding of magic and are very emotional. Many people have different opinions, but in terms of basic principles, everyone is still the same. The casting of magic requires 2 elements, magic and will. Magic is the raw material, and will is the machinery of production. The raw materials are put into the machine to create the product called magic. The function of the wand is to concentrate magic power. The wand gestures and incantations not only arouse the consciousness of magic to produce specific effects, but also provide spiritual hints to oneself, making it easier for wizards to mobilize magic and concentrate their consciousness. For beginners, wands and spells are very convenient tools. They only need to follow the steps to cast spells. Even if they have no understanding of the spell, they cannot change the effect of the spell. But with continuous practice, wizards' understanding of magic will get better. When a wizard is sufficiently proficient at a spell that the hints brought by gestures and spells become his own instinct, he doesn't even need a magic spell to suggest it. He can focus his consciousness and mobilize his magic power in the corresponding way. This is the so-called wandless casting and silent casting. But if you only explore a certain spell in depth, even if you can play with the spell, you are still just a user of the spell. A typical example is a certain forgotten curse Jinchuriki. A truly skilled wizard can deeply understand the essence of spells and gestures, and by decomposing and recombining them, the magic can produce other specific effects, which will produce new magic. At this point, Levin admired Snape very much. He is indeed a genius, not only a master of potions, but also a master of occlumency and legilimency. This is why he can act as a double agent in front of the 2 contemporary masters of legilimency, Dumbledore and Voldemort. But in fact, Snape's accomplishments in spells exceeded others. During his time at school alone, he created several forms of dark magic, each of which was a universal spell. The so-called universal spells refer to spells that most wizards can use normally after learning them. In fact, from ancient times to the present, there are many wizards who can invent new spells on their own. But there are not many magic spells that can really be widely spread. This is because when many spells were first created, they were tailor-made for the creator. It perfectly fits the creator's personality, physical characteristics and spellcasting habits. But when other people use it, it will stumble and not be used smoothly. Some spells even rely purely on the creator's talent. Only the creator himself can adapt to them, and other wizards cannot use them even if they learn them. Only through rigorous adjustments can a new spell be made suitable for most wizards. Snape's curses are almost always like this. For example, their upside-down golden clock he created is still widely circulated in Hogwarts. The best among them is Shenfeng Wu Ying, created by Snape in 5th grade. Even among black magic, this spell is quite excellent. Not only is the lethality astonishing, but it also suffers from continuous bleeding damage if it cannot be killed. Not only does it continue to bleed and hurt, it also cannot be healed. Not only is it impossible to heal, but it is also invisible. Unlike other black magic, each one is accompanied by amazing special effects, as if telling the other person at the top of his voice, "I'm coming to kill you." Use the armor spell quickly. Shenfeng Yu Ying is completely different from those glamorous bitches. It has almost no sound and light special effects, except for chanting curses at the top of your lungs. It is really a must-have choice for killing people and setting fires when traveling at home. It's a pity that he was tied up by Lily Potter, which prevented him from delving into black magic again. Otherwise, Levin believes that Snape has every chance of becoming a master of black magic comparable to Dumbledore. I don't know how much taller it is than one without a nose. With Snape, a senior, in front of him, Levin naturally cannot fall behind, with a heaven-defying understanding. The standard cannot be too low. Levin listed a small goal, double the number of enchantments in the common enchantments list before graduation. But no matter how grand or ambitious you are, you must start from the simplest magic spell. The first spell class was about lighting charm. Professor Flitwick looked around. Who knows the spell for the lighting spell? Seeing no response from the little wizards around him, Levin immediately raised his hand. Fluorescence. After all, he is a professor of his own college, so he should support him at this time. Very good. The spell tone is very standard. 5 points for Ravenclaw. Professor Flitwick praised with satisfaction. Next comes the practical stage, where Professor Flitwick lets the students try casting spells on their own. Levin learned this spell on the first day he got the textbook, and even developed dancing lights technique based on it, so he used it directly. Very good, Mr. Green has succeeded. Perfect light. Ravenclaw adds 5 points. Although Ravenclaw students are smart, they pay more attention to personal achievements and hobbies than collective honor, and lack the desire to express themselves. This directly resulted in Ravenclaw obviously having a group of top academics, but they were always suppressed by Slytherin and Gryffindor in the Academy Cup. This time, someone who is both excellent and expressive finally appears. In Flitwick's eyes, Levin far surpassed the other young wizards, which made the headmaster of Ravenclaw couldn't help but seize the opportunity to add a few points to his academy. In addition to scores, Levin also gained additional benefits from this class. He took advantage of the opportunity of free practice to provide Professor Flitwick with information about the advanced use of illumination spell. Professor Flitwick naturally does not hesitate to give his favorite students some tricks. You have learned the ultimate illuminating spell, Lumus Maxima. You are proficient in arcane magic. You have clearly understood the core concept of the ultimate illuminating spell, and you have made upgrades. Your ultimate lighting spell is upgraded to Daylight Spell. Daylight Spell. Illuminate a certain area as bright as day. The light produced by this spell has the same effect as sunlight, can drive away vampires like sunlight, etc. Levin is one step closer to his small goal. Chapter 18 Library Shopping. The next class was Herbology, which they had to take with Hufflepuff. The Herbology classroom is in the southeast of the castle and is a large independent greenhouse. It is managed by Professor Sprout, the Dean of Hufflepuff and Professor of Herbalism. Many magical plants and herbs are planted here. In addition to being used for teaching, it is also considered a product of Hogwarts. It is said that many materials in Snape's medicine cabinet were provided by Professor Sprout. Professor Pomona Sprout is a short witch with flowing grey hair. She usually wears a thick hat full of patches and is covered in dirt, because she always stays in the greenhouse playing with flowers and plants and doesn't care about her appearance. Overall, he is an optimistic and compassionate person, a standard Hufflepuff. Not only is she easygoing and friendly, her lectures are also very lively. In his class, Levin performed well as usual. After all, with his absolute memory and scholar's touch, his brain is equivalent to a super database, and all knowledge entered through scanning can be called up at any time. Of course, just using knowledge does not mean that it can be put into practical use. But when it comes to answering class questions according to the script, this ability is overwhelming to ordinary people. Ravenclaw students quickly adapted to this and are proud of it. Indeed, answering questions proactively is not a praiseworthy quality for Ravenclaw. But if you do this to the extreme, you can answer any class question 100% correctly. Even they have to admire such people. After class, Levin quickened his pace and came to the auditorium quickly, which made Steve feel that he had found a kindred spirit. But Levin was different from him. He walked so fast not to finish the meal, but to finish the meal early so that he could go to the library to read quickly. After a hasty dinner, Levin went to the library. Then he discovered that he was actually the first student to arrive here, even before Miss Know-It-All Hermione Granger. However, the first thing he did when he came here was not to read a book, but to do his homework. Unlike the Mole world, Hogwarts does not have any exercise books or workbooks that provide professional exercises. Their homework is basically to write short compositions. For example, summarize the main points of the course, describe the course insights, etc. And the limit on their assignments is not word count, but length. The so-called length is probably about the same as the number of lines. It's just that the professor doesn't count the number of lines written in the assignment, but the length of parchment consumed from beginning to end. I had 3 classes today, and in total I had to write nearly 2 feet of homework. In order to complete their homework more easily, many little wizards will go to the library to do their homework and search for information while writing. After all, copying a book is easier than editing it yourself. But for Levin, simple homework is not a problem at all. He has all kinds of information in his mind for him to call upon, and he himself is proficient in various hydrology techniques to make up the number of words. After all, I had been a student of the Dragon Kingdom for so long in my previous life, and I was always a question writer. But compared to his magical writing skills, the little wizards still envy his automatic writing pen. He just needs to dictate and the pen will automatically complete the assignment. This is the wonderful use of scribe. In fact, Levin is happy to teach them the little magic he invented. Unfortunately, no one came forward to ask. Everyone thinks of it as an expensive shorthand pen. After completing his homework, Levin's real mission in the library began. This is the place with the largest and most comprehensive collection of books in the entire wizarding world of Great Britain. The collection of books here is not only accumulated by the school over the past 1,000 years, but also donated by outstanding alumni from all walks of life. It can be said that no matter whether it is a pureblood family, an organization like the Death Eaters, or even the Ministry of Magic, the collection of books cannot compare to this place. To Levin, almost half of the value of Hogwarts is in this library. When Harry and others arrived at the library, they immediately saw Levin fighting with a large pile of books in the corner. Thick books were stacked on top of each other, almost 3 or 4 feet high, almost burying him completely. When Harry saw this, he took a deep breath and said with admiration, "He has read so many books, no wonder he is so good." Hermione snorted, bit her lip, and said to herself, "The semester has just begun, I will catch up with you soon." In their eyes, Levin's reading mode is quite strange. He doesn't carefully flip through the pages of a book like most people do, not even a quick page turn. Instead, just like flipping playing cards, you go through the pages of the book from beginning to end in front of your eyes. Each book, no matter how thick, consumed no more than a minute in front of him. It's like the legendary quantum wave speed reading. Of course, the little wizards don't know what quantum wave speed reading is, but they knew very well that there was no way to read it. It's just that Levin's expression is too focused and serious. Except for the speed of turning the book, his expression and posture are no different from those of someone who really reads seriously. This strange appearance not only stunned Harry and the others, but even the librarian, Mrs. Pince, frowned. Lady Irma Pince, Hogwarts librarian. According to the young wizards, this woman is extremely difficult to get along with and treats the young wizards in the library very harshly. Under her management, the Hogwarts library looked less like a place of learning and more like a dictatorship. Of course, essentially she just wants to keep the library quiet and the books tidy. But these descriptions are enough to reflect her harshness. Right now, he is eyeing Levin in quantum wave speed reading. Although Levin's actions did not violate the library's rules, nor did he make too much noise, nor did he damage the collection of books. But Mrs. Pince, who loves books, still couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to teach young people a little experience. "This classmate, this is not how you read books. You won't gain any knowledge this way." She didn't know the ability of Scholar's Touch, so she couldn't understand that Levin was actually reading. So, Levin showed her on the spot what it meant to memorize things backwards and forwards. Soon, Mrs. Pince left with a strange look on her face. Even after returning to her seat, she still peeked at Levin from time to time. Others were even more dumbfounded. "Is this the true level of genius?" We are all students who came on the same train. Why are there such big differences? With the exception of Hermione, everyone else has completely given up on comparing themselves to Levin in this regard. Especially Ronald, his attention turned to the parchment covered with writing on Levin's desk. Levin," he said, his whole face turning red. Levin glanced at him and immediately understood what he meant. He just wanted to copy his homework. No one wants to copy homework on the first day. He sighed and pushed the homework over. "Just don't disturb me reading." Levin's goal this semester is to have the entire library of books in his head. When all the books on the desktop have been scanned using Scholar's Touch, Levin stood up and headed to the bookshelf with a large stack of books. I have to say that this library is quite large, with 2 floors in total. Not counting the hidden areas, the entire library covers an area of several thousand square meters. Countless tall bookshelves extend from the ground to the 7-8 meter high ceiling, and many books can only be accessed by stepping on ladders. Of course, you can also use flying spells, but spellcasting is prohibited here. As he walked, Levin reached the depths of the library. He saw more than a dozen rows of bookshelves, locked up by a screen, with a warning sign, Forbidden Book Zone. From a distance, Levin could feel the chaotic and huge fluctuations of magic power inside. According to the rules of the magic world, those truly powerful knowledge and magics will contain magic power just by writing them down with a pen. According to Levin's estimation, with the scale of this magic power fluctuation, there are at least thousands of books containing magic power in the forbidden book area. If half the value of Hogwarts is in the library, then half of the library's value is in this restricted area. To him, this is a treasure trove of treasures. But after Levin looked at Mrs. Pince from afar, he turned around and left. Now is not the time to enter the Forbidden Zone. Levin has already figured this out. The White Wizard's attitude towards magic is very obvious. He advocates white magic and opposes black magic. This goes against the philosophy of Hogwarts throughout the ages. Of course Levin disapproves, but he is the principal after all, and the highest authority of Hogwarts lies in his hands. What can he do? He is not the boy who lived, the savior of the great yin magical world. If you rashly come into contact with taboo knowledge, you will only be met with suspicion. For a little wizard like him with no background, it is best to be honest in the first year and just learn the knowledge allowed by the school. Instead of causing trouble everywhere, traveling at night, secretly reading forbidden books, breaking into forbidden forests. Is that what you should do? The savior was able to do this because he was protected by Dumbledore, and people pointed him to fight the Dark Lord to save the world. So naturally he could tolerate it no matter what. As for ordinary wizards. Do you really think that Hogwarts doesn't expel students? So, if I get into trouble like Harry Potter, I'll be a dog. Levin swore secretly. But for a time traveler who regards everyone as an NPC and remains arrogant in his heart, how long can such a stubborn idea last? Chapter 19. When Kelpie appears in Harry Potter. After making up his mind to be a good student, Levin actively interacted with the teacher in every class he took. As analyzed before, all Dumbledore cares about is his broken prophecy. As long as it doesn't have too much interaction with Harry Potter and his annual adventure, it will basically not fall into his eyes. Levin naturally does not have to keep a low profile in normal studies. With Levin's activeness, Ravenclaw naturally scores points. The professors all liked this little mole-born genius. His only threatening competitor was Hermione Granger. This know-it-all lady seemed to regard Levin as her biggest competitor after meeting him in the library, and she wanted to compete with him no matter what. It wasn't until the History of Magic class that Levin's rule over extra points came to an end. It's not that he can't memorize History of Magic by heart. He won't have this problem at all with his memory database. Cuthbert Binns, who mainly writes History of Magic, is too confusing. The main focus of this ghost teacher's course is on autism. As soon as the class time came, Cuthbert Binns walked through the wall on time. He didn't even call the name, and just started reading the text in a monotonous voice. Read the entire class and call it a day. From beginning to end, there was no interaction, no questions, and naturally no extra points. This also makes History of Magic the most boring class in Hogwarts. If Levin could have met such a teacher when he was in college, he would have laughed to death. If the teacher doesn't care about things, then this class will just be watered down as much as you want. But when he was a good student himself, it was embarrassing. Another class standing in the way is potions. The potions classroom is in the basement. It is said that the coldness of the basement is conducive to the storage of materials. But Levin and the young wizards all suspected that this was purely due to Snape's personal preference based on his dark psychology. The first time he set foot here, Levin felt uncomfortable. Even the powerful magic inside Hogwarts cannot dispel this darkness and coldness. Together with the glass jars that take up most of the wall and are filled with various offal, it feels like visiting the herbarium of a medical school. Even Slytherins have to hide away when they come to attend the classes of their dean. If paired with Snape's greasy long hair and gloomy old face, the cooling effect is doubled. The little wizards fully felt this in the first potions class. When Snape slid silently into the classroom like a giant bat, the temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Like Flitwick, he picked up the register as soon as class started, and like Flitwick, he always paused when Harry's name was called. "Oh yes," he whispered. "Harry Potter, this is our new arrival, a famous person." He opened his mouth slightly, and his voice was full of disdain. "You are here to learn the precise science and strict craftsmanship of preparing potions. Since there's no silly waving of wands here, many of you won't believe this is magic. I don't expect you to truly understand the beauty of the slowly simmering cauldron emitting white smoke and bursting with fragrance. You won't truly understand the liquid flowing into people's blood vessels, the kind that makes people's hearts wander and their wills blur. Wonderful magic. I can teach you how to increase your reputation, brew glory, and even prevent death, but there must be one thing, that is, you must not be the stupid fools I often encounter." Next is Snape's question session. Like Professor McGonagall, he likes to give new students a hard time by randomly selecting an unlucky person to make things difficult for them. It's actually not random. It mainly depends on who Snape is unhappy with. Originally, Levin thought he would target Harry as in the original novel, and was prepared to see the joke. Unexpectedly, in a blink of an eye, He realized that Snape was looking at him with evil eyes. I sat up in shock. When I was dying of illness, I was the unlucky one. This is also normal. It can be seen from Snape's attitude towards Hermione in the original book. He really doesn't like students who are flamboyant and like to be in the limelight. Maybe it's the hatred towards James Potter and others. In short, Levin has been targeted by Snape because of his previous outstanding performance. In addition, Levin speculated that this was also related to his relationship with Harry. Levin was the only Ravenclaw freshman who had a good relationship with Harry. Green. Stand up. What will I get if I add narcissus root powder to a mugwort infusion? Snape suddenly asked. But this head-sucking was of no use to him, not to mention that the potions textbook has already been included in the database in the brain. Just based on the memory of his previous life, he knew exactly what kind of axe Snape would wield. A bottle of water of life and death. Professor, if I asked you to find me a piece of bezoar, where would you look for it? In the cow's stomach. What's the difference between aconitum scaphoides and aconitum wolfspan? There is no difference. They are both aconitum. Snape came up with a right kick, a right leg kick, and a left jab. In the end, Levin was on guard against everything. But Snape didn't give up. The one-click triple combo in the original work didn't work, so he immediately increased the difficulty. Bezoars are the feces of what animal? Bezoars are not feces, but stones taken from the stomachs of goats. When does the sapweed need to be picked? When the moon is full. After 6 or 7 questions in a row, no matter how hard Snape tried to make things difficult, Levin could give the answers without thinking. This series of quick questions and answers made the other little wizards look stupid. Until Snape asked, what does the water ghost brain do? Water brain? Is there such a material in Harry Potter's world? Upon hearing this question, Levin was instantly confused. Isn't this a specialty in the wizarding world? Why would Snape ask this question? Has he also traveled through time? No. Think about it carefully. Since Cirila is also in this world, it means that all this is not a coincidence. Unknown changes have taken place in this world. Considering that the main plot has not changed much, the impact of this change will not be big for the time being. I will have to study it carefully when I have time. At that moment, Levin's inner thoughts were racing rapidly. It really surprised Levin that Snape could raise this extra category question. But it's not like he never played The Witcher 3 in his previous life. Water ghost brain can be used to make healing potions. Levin thought for a while and added in a low voice, it has a strong aphrodisiac effect on men. After listening to Levin's answer, the old bat fell into a brief silence. He really didn't expect that this Ravenclaw top student would actually be so outstanding. You know, the water ghost is a new monster that only appeared in the past 10 years. And water ghost brain is a new potion material that was only discovered in the past 5 years. Most of the research results on water ghost brain are limited to the circle of pharmacists and cutting-edge papers. This first-year freshman knows even this, which is indeed considered to be knowledgeable, especially the aphrodisiac effect of water ghost brain, which was a new result discovered only last year. It originated from an accident that occurred after a male pharmacist accidentally took raw water ghost extract. At that time, he only had his swallow-tailed dog by his side. Snape looked at Levin deeply, and then he shouted to the other young wizards, what are you waiting for? Why don't you write down this knowledge? Levin smiled slightly and watched Snape's incompetent rage, but soon he stopped laughing, because after failing to make things difficult for him, Snape was so shameless that he started explaining the content of the first lesson directly. He didn't give Ravenclaw any points. It is really shameless to be partial to this extent. But finally, through the scene, Levin managed to show off in front of the little wizards of the same grade. Chapter 20 Permanent Properties Potion. In addition to basic theory and the use of equipment, this class also teaches the method of brewing potion to treat scabies. The so-called scabies potion is simply a medicine for treating skin diseases. Can treat pustules, measles, boils and other symptoms of tuberculosis. But the cooking process needs to be very careful. Improper preparation can cause the potion to cause boils rather than cure them. Unlike various spells courses, the potions course pays more attention to practice and does not teach too much theoretical content. After explaining the process and precautions, Snape divided the little wizards into 2 groups and started working directly. Crucible, grinding bowl, scale, stirring rod, knife. Except for not using alcohol lamps, the experimental facilities in the potions class are the same as Levin's previous chemistry experimental classes. According to Snape's explanation, the little wizards skillfully handled the medicinal materials, weighed them, coated them in egg liquid, covered them with breadcrumbs, heated a pan with oil, deep-fried them until golden brown, and the children at the next table were so greedy that they cried. To make a pot of qualified scabies medicine, you first need to take a few snake fangs, put them in a mortar, and grind them into powder. Then weigh a small amount of dried nettles and cut into sections for later use. At the same time, add water to the crucible and bring it to a boil. Then put the slugs with tentacles in them for steaming. Add cold water repeatedly and boil it 3 times. Then drain the water in the crucible, take out the slugs, put them in a grinding bowl, and grind them into a paste. Add water to the crucible again, bring to a boil over low heat, then add fang powder, dried nettles, and slug puree in sequence. Be careful to stir while adding, Finally remove the cauldron from the fire and add the porcupine quills. Let the potion sit for a while. If the potion turns blue and pink smoke rises from the crucible, it means the potion has been brewed successfully. Levin's partner is roommate Steve. But the entire cooking process is completely dominated by Levin. This is not surprising. Levin worked in a pharmacy in Diagon Alley during his summer vacation and was quite skilled in handling medicinal materials. Steve watched with admiration the whole time as Levin showed off his skills. It was only now that he discovered that Levin was an all-around academic master. Not only was he proficient in spells and knew the textbooks well, but he was also quite good at practical courses such as potions. But only Levin himself knew that. Having taken chemistry and biology experimental classes, he was quite critical of the wizard's potion system. In his previous chemistry experiment class, all the experimental materials were accurate to milliliters and milligrams, and the heating and resting times were accurate to seconds, highlighting the professionalism and precision. As long as the process was followed exactly, the results would be almost the same. Only by pursuing precise standardized experimental processes at every step can we have standardized output and then develop large-scale industrial production. On the other hand, when a wizard makes a potion, it is full of words such as a little and a moment that all rely on feelings. Rather than saying it is a pharmaceutical process, it is more like cooking a recipe. Just one sentence is missing. Wrap it in egg wash and stick it with breadcrumbs, and the kids next door will be crying. Producing potions relies entirely on the pharmacist's sense. Once the sense is wrong, it can easily lead to a big mistake. This means that potions will always be products of small workshops and cannot be mass-produced. With such insects, how can we successfully industrialize magic? Just like now, Levin watched helplessly as Neville tried to throw the porcupine quill directly into the crucible. With quick eyesight and quick hands, he immediately waved his wand. Porcupine quills are flying. The porcupine quill immediately flew out of Neville's hand and fell into Levin's hand. Porcupine quills can't be released until the crucible is out of the fire, he reminded. If Levin didn't stop him, the pot of potion would explode just like in the original novel. The wrong potion would fly everywhere, giving him red and swollen scabies all over his body. When Neville heard this, he suddenly realized what he said and muttered, "Thank you. Thank you, Levin." Before Levin could respond, Snape's hiss sounded in his ears. Mr. Green thinks that he can teach others just because he has the title of Genius of Ravenclaw. For interfering with other people's brewing of potions, Ravenclaw will deduct 5 points. In the original book, the old bat was sarcastic and deducted points for Harry not reminding Neville. Now Levin took the initiative to remind him, but he was still ridiculed and deducted points. The old bat is indeed difficult to maintain. However, Levin's lesson was not without its benefits. You prepared a potion for the first time and mastered the skills of potion in practice. You gained the expertise, potion proficiency. Potion proficiency, your stable technique increases the success rate of your spontaneous potion refining and reduces your chance of accidents. In the process of refining the scabies potion, you had a flash of inspiration and realized the true meaning of using potions to change yourself. You combined the spells you mastered to create a new potion formula, the elixir of toughness of the eternal bear and the power of the eternal bull, elixir of eternal cat's elegance, eternal fox's cunning elixir, eternal owl's wisdom elixir, eternal eagle's majestic elixir. It's actually a permanent elixir. Levin was greatly satisfied with the results of this epiphany. For wizards, the ability to cast spells is of course the most important, but physical fitness must not fall behind either. Unfortunately, throughout the Harry Potter world, there are no potions that can improve the physical and mental qualities of wizards. If you want to become stronger, you can only work hard on your own. Levin also thought about when to start exercising. Even if you want to be a wizard, you must develop your moral, intellectual, physical, artistic and physical skills at the same time, and go hand in hand. Now that there is a shortcut, there is no need to work hard on yourself. The only concern is that the materials required for these potions are relatively precious and require time to collect. For example, Eternal Ox Power Elixir. The main material is the blood of ream cattle. Since the supply of this blood is very small, it is rarely sold on the open market, and it is not easy to get it. Another example is Eternal Cat's Elegant Elixir, which requires Ocelot's Claw Powder, Eternal Fox's Cunning Elixir, which requires the tail-tip hair of a nine-tailed fox, Eternal Eagle's Majestic Elixir, which requires Griffin's Beak Powder. The Eternal Bear's Fortitude Elixir requires Bear's Paw. These are extremely rare materials from all over the world. If you want to buy them all, you have to spend a lot of money. The most deceptive thing is Eternal Owl's Wisdom Elixir. The main material is the head feathers of the owl beast, but in Levin's impression, there are no owl beasts in the Harry Potter world. On the contrary, auxiliary materials are easier to obtain. For example, hopla juice, moonstone, mud monster tongue, unicorn hair, etc. You can get them all in the Forbidden Forest. Damn it! I just swore not to go to the Forbidden Forest, but within a few days I'm going to go back on my word. I really can't keep up with the changes in my plans. Levin was also quite helpless about this. What else could he do? As long as you can become stronger, it doesn't matter if you whoop for few more times. Anyway, he only swore to himself, and no one else could hear him. In short, Inventing a formula does not mean that attributes can be strengthened immediately, but it's still a good start. This also strengthened Levin's determination to make more money. Chapter 21 Identification and the MicrometeorsPotions class is usually held in 2 consecutive periods, which is considered the longest single period. This is also due to the characteristics of the potions class. The process of processing medicinal materials is very cumbersome, and the boiling time of many medicines can easily take 1 or 2 hours. Therefore, even 2 consecutive potions classes are considered short. When it comes to potions that need to be boiled for a long time, the little wizards have no chance of trial and error. As long as you cook 1 pot wrongly, you won't be able to cook the 2nd pot before get out of class ends. In addition to potions, there was another annoying class that day, astronomy. In order to observe the stars more clearly, astronomy class does not start until midnight. This seriously affected Levin's sleep. The astronomy class takes place on the astronomy tower, which is the highest place in the entire castle. The astronomy class is taught by Professor Aurora Sinistra, a black witch who looks to be only in her 30s. Like her astronomy class, Professor Sinistra has little presence in the original novel. It sounds like astronomy isn't important to wizards. Not really. After taking this class, Levin realized that celestial bodies contain huge magical powers. Every celestial object that can be observed by the naked eyes of people on Earth is a star shining from light years away. Their power, along with starlight, radiates across light years to the Earth, for the wizards to use. Of course, the magic power radiated together with the starlight is very weak, and can only be felt to the extent that it can be used to cast spells to the extent of lighting a candle. But it doesn't matter, because the magic power that comes with the starlight serves to connect the stars and the wizard. Once the connection is achieved, through appropriate rituals, the powerful magic power belonging to the stars can truly be invoked. Of course, this ritual magic is powerful and ancient, and is not taught in Hogwarts classes. Through ritual magic, wizards can accomplish many miracles with a small, relatively speaking, amount of magic. If you want to use the stars as a source of ritual power, you naturally have to study astronomy carefully. Many ritual magics include conditions such as solar eclipse, full moon, 9 stars in a row, comet coming, meteor shower, planet moving to the right position. The most typical of these is astrology. Therefore, for Levin, who aspires to become a powerful mage and magic researcher, learning astronomy is a must. In the process of observing the starry sky, Levin naturally also realized something. You have listened to the introductory course on stargazing, and have a deep understanding of the starry sky and destiny, and your expertise in the prophecy school has improved. You have understood the power of stars and destiny from the starry sky. You have understood the magic, identification technique, micrometeor, identification technique. Identify all magical properties of a magic item, including how to activate its function, if required, and how many charges of spell power the item has left, if any. For wizards who run pawn shops and second-hand shops, this is a very practical ability. After all, the magic items created by wizards are all kinds of strange. Who knows what hidden energy they contain or what terrible curse they contain? Even Dumbledore was smitten by the cursed opal necklace. With this skill, Levin can open a stall in Diagon Alley and make a fortune. Micrometeors. The caster creates microbolides in his hands, and this energy creation is regarded as an extraordinary weapon. Micrometeor also has a name in other planes, Mayufu Micrometeor, which is a famous low-level god-slaying spell. It's just that there is no Mayufu in the Harry Potter world. It was him, Levin Green, who understood this spell. Therefore, even if you add a prefix to this magic, it still has to be called Levin's Micrometeor. This is a 3rd-level spell that looks very inconspicuous. In terms of damage alone, this spell is not as good as arcane magic, fireball, or black magic, explosion spell. But there is a very special thing about Micrometeor, that is, it is a magical creation and is regarded as an extraordinary weapon. This also means that even the incarnation of a god is not completely immune to the damage caused by it. You know, in high-level battles, the most important thing is not how much damage is caused, it's about how to carry out special attacks against the enemy's defense and how to cause damage. After all, there are many spells like magic immunity, designated element immunity, and designated camp immunity. Both sides need to battle wits and courage at this level of rules. At this time, the benefit of Micrometeor's force damage characteristic is revealed, and as long as it can cause damage, even if 1 point of blood is deducted once, the cumulative effect of killing the god can be achieved. Overall, this evening was quite fruitful. Levin's resentment for staying up late gradually disappeared. But then again, it's not impossible to sleep in today, because the next morning was Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Defense Against the Dark Arts course. Just hearing this name makes him admired by little wizards. Looking at the main courses taken in the first week, the art of transfiguration is too obscure and difficult, which is most frustrating for young wizards. The charms class only taught a simple lighting spell, which was not interesting at all. Herbalism was interesting, but it was too tiring, and I always made myself dirty. History of Magic is purely a course for catching up on sleep. No one likes potions except Slytherin. As of now, Only defense against the dark arts classes and flying classes can still be looked forward to. Flying lessons are almost equivalent to physical education classes, so it's normal for them to be popular. The defense against the dark arts course is very popular and is divided into two parts, dark arts and defense. Black magic, although scary, also means powerful power. Defense means confrontation. It is a normal emotion for children to desire power and to defeat others in battle. But Levin knows very well that this semester's defense against the dark arts class may be disappointing. It's better not to have high expectations. Steve whispered on the way to class. I learned from Hufflepuff that Professor Quirrell's teaching level is only slightly better than Cuthbert Binns. Generally speaking, the proud Ravenclaws rarely make friends with young wizards from other houses. The only exception is Hufflepuff. The relationship between the two colleges is surprisingly good. Ravenclaw, who has several lion cubs as friends like Levin, is a special case. After hearing his words, the little wizards around him couldn't help but take a breath. If an ordinary person goes to class, the effect will be better than Cuthbert Binns. Professor Quirrell was actually evaluated by the least picky little badger Raz. He is only slightly better than the hypnotist Cuthbert Binns, so how bad is he? Chapter 22 The Curse of Defense Against the Dark Arts. When it comes to classroom knowledge, most of the little wizards are drowsy. But when it comes to gossip, everyone is no longer sleepy. Ronald also added excitedly, George and Freddy told me that the position of Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts is unlucky. Ravenclaw took this class with Gryffindor, so he got together with Levin and others. This kind of mysterious things are the easiest to attract people's appetite. Steve immediately asked. Even the naive Neville came over to listen. Seeing that his news was so popular, Ronald became proud. I've also heard that this position is very evil. In the past 30 years, every defense against the dark arts professor has had an accident within a year, and no one can teach for more than a year. Some people even died in office, and people were confused. Said that this position was cursed by a mysterious person. When Ronald was talking, the surrounding area immediately became quiet, and the little wizards who were chatting nearby all shut their mouths. Levin looked around. Good guy, everyone is listening with their ears stretched out. As soon as I heard the keywords mysterious man, death and curse, a big discussion immediately arose. Some people have already started betting on whether Quirrell can teach until next year. Hermione obviously had different opinions. This matter was not mentioned in Hogwarts, a school history. Levin smiled. Books can only be used as reference. The contents in the books may not be true. Even Newton's 3 laws of physics were later overturned. He paused and analyzed. But I think this is true, because in the past 30 years, the defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts has indeed changed every year. You only need to ask any senior to know this kind of thing. Levin was so confident that Hermione believed it, and asked curiously, can't even Dumbledore lift this curse? I'm afraid that's the case, otherwise Dumbledore would have solved this problem long ago. New professors are recruited every year. For those who don't know, Hogwarts would have to hire a professor every year. In fact, as far as Levin knows, this curse is more terrifying than imagined. Those former defense against the dark arts professors didn't end well. Those who resigned due to unexpected events are fine. Some unlucky ones are unable to teach due to various accidents, and there are also many who are directly admitted to Street Mungo's hospital. This directly caused the reputation of this position to become bad, making it difficult to recruit people. But this is not the most terrifying thing. After Harry Potter entered school, the horror of this curse reached its peak. Looking at the defense against the dark arts professors who taught Harry Potter, in addition to Quirrell and Lockhart who died and went crazy during their tenure as teachers, Lupin, Moody and Snape, the 3 teachers who safely survived their teaching tenure, also died in the 7th part. Even Voldemort himself died. Voldemort, I cursed people to the point of being afraid. The only one who was slightly better was the pink-toed Umbridge. She didn't die, but went to Azkaban. After class, Professor Quirrell really disappointed the little wizards. As the professor of defense against the dark arts, Quirinus Quirrell lacks the majesty of a professor at all. He is described as wretched, with a ridiculous purple turban on his head, and his whole body is filled with the smell of garlic. Even when he spoke, he stuttered. Hello everyone, I am the defense against the dark arts professor, Q Quirrell. From what Levin knew about him, Quirrell wasn't actually teaching on his first day at Hogwarts. He was also a good Ravenclaw graduate and taught Muggle studies at Hogwarts. But his dream is to become a defense against the dark arts professor. His theoretical knowledge is very solid, but the defense against the dark arts course pays more attention to practical combat, so he applied to go out to gain experience in defense against the dark arts. To put it bluntly, just find some evil creatures and practice with dark wizards. Unexpectedly, this training would lead him to the dark forest of Albania, where he met the leader of the dark wizards, Voldemort. Speaking of which, Voldemort failed to apply to be the defense against the dark arts professor, so he placed a curse on this position. Now he possesses Quirrell and sneaks into Hogwarts to become the defense against the dark arts professor, which can be regarded as a dream come true. In the first class, Professor Quirrell will teach how to deal with ghouls. Speaking of which, compared to their counterparts in the world of Harry Potter, The ghouls in the Harry Potter world simply stretch their hips to the extreme. They neither paralyze the enemy through their attacks, nor can he cut down trees or eat corpses to restore blood. Not to mention how much 1007 equals. These poor creatures, who look vicious, actually live in the wizard's attic barn, feeding on spiders and moths. Because of this, many wizards even keep ghouls as pets. Ronald's family has one. Whenever it feels that the house is too quiet, it will start tapping on the pipes. Levin also didn't understand why this extremely low-risk creature appeared in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. In other words, Levin fundamentally questioned the concept of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. The so-called defense against dark magic is actually about how to resist dark creatures. There was no mention of the truly dangerous dark wizards and black magic. What kind of dark magic can this protect against? In fact, Levin even has doubts about the definition of black magic. The definition of black magic in the Harry Potter world is very vague. It seems that all spells that can cause harm to others are black magic. But that's not right either. As long as it is used properly, Flying Curse can kill people, Lighting Curse can also blind people. The famous anal digging curse in black magic was actually invented to facilitate anorectal surgery. A portrait of its inventor still hangs on the wall of Street Mungo's hospital. Some people say that using black magic requires evil intentions. But human character itself contains good and evil. Asking a person to only use white magic and not black magic is equivalent to asking a person to have only good and no evil in his heart. This is completely unrealistic. In Levin's view, black magic is just a type of power, and its existence is reasonable. As long as it is suitable, it is worth studying. Like Dumbledore, hoping to turn everyone in the wizarding world into saints by banning dark magic is simply wishful thinking by a moral freak. If this development continues, it will only lead to stagnation and backwardness in the magic world. In fact, the wizarding world in the Harry Potter world has been stagnant for a long time. Their so-called International Confederation of Wizards Statute of Secrecy protects not muggles, but wizards themselves. Levin, who has memories of past lives, knows exactly how far Muggle technology will develop in the next few decades. As a wizard who can cast spells, his butt naturally sits on the wizard's side. After taking this class, he understood that Hogwarts was so evasive even in teaching a defense against the dark arts class, not even daring to teach any real black magic. If the wizarding world continued to develop like this, sooner or later something would happen. Big problem. Soon Levin also understood why Hufflepuff said Professor Quirrell was worse than Cuthbert Binns. In terms of teaching methods, Professor Quirrell is exactly the same as Cuthbert Binns. Read the text according to the text. Although Binns, an old ghost, spoke in a dull tone, he could read it very fluently, almost to the point of memorizing it backwards and forwards. Occasionally when he is in a good mood, he will tell the little wizard some interesting expansion topics, such as some unofficial history. And what about Professor Quirrell? He couldn't even read the text fluently. Coupled with the problem of stuttering, listening to him lecture was a disaster. Levin seriously suspected that Dumbledore was willing to invite Professor Quirrell simply because no one else signed up except him. Because of this, Professor Quirrell was laughed at by the little wizards. Everyone said that the garlic smell on Quirrell's body was to drive away a vampire he met in Romania. Even when he arrived at Hogwarts, he was afraid that the vampire would come back to catch him. Quirrell tried to explain that his scarf was a gift from an African prince as a thank you for helping him escape from the zombies, but no one believed his story. Seamus. When Finnegan impatiently asked Professor Quirrell how he defeated the resurrected zombies, the professor's face turned red and he was vague. Even Hermione, who respects teachers the most, couldn't help but start complaining. Professor Quirrell doesn't seem to be very good at teaching. Is it because I'm nervous about being a professor for the first time? She didn't believe this herself, but she just didn't want to speak ill of the professor. Levin broke his fantasy. This is not the first time Quirrell has been a professor. He taught Muggle studies in school before. Hermione's face fell, becoming increasingly disappointed with the future of this course. Her eyes darkened when she thought that the next 7 years of defense against the dark arts would be like this. Levin is quite optimistic. His level is at least higher than Gilderoy Lockhart. Chapter 23 Duel Invitation. In just 1 week, Levin has fully proved his talent. The young wizards and professors at Hogwarts already know that there is a very outstanding new student in Ravenclaw's first year. Although he was born as a Muggle, his magical talent and learning ability surpassed those of purer bloods. He excelled in any subject, whether it was transfiguration, charms or potions. Nothing was too hard for him. Even in flying lessons, Levin is one of the best flyers among the first-year wizards. Although Levin's physical fitness is only average, before class, he did not forget to cast a set of Bear's Tenacity, Ox's Strength, and Cat's Elegance on himself. Bear's Tenacity gives him inexhaustible physical strength. Bull Power gives him powerful explosive power. Cat's Elegance allows him to be as agile as a cat. I have to say that the duration of the attribute enhancement spell is quite long. It's no big deal to stick to 1 or 2 classes. The best thing is that these are 3 are Levin's own magic, and their principles are very different from most spells and transformations. There is basically no possibility of being detected. With the three-pronged approach, Levin instantly transformed into a broomstick genius and showed his face during Miss Hooch's flying lesson. But after Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff's flying lessons, there was a big problem in the class of the little lion and the little snake, and it almost turned into a group fight. That night, in the corner of the library, Levin met Harry again. In other words, Harry and Ronald came to him specially. During this period, Levin's life rhythm was extremely regular. He usually only appeared in 3 places: classroom, library and auditorium. "Levin, I knew you were here." Levin put down the crazy magic of the strange wizard in his hand and looked up at a few old friends he had known before entering school. "Hey, why did you come to see me all the time? We are not in the same house. Except for a few classes, we have never been together. Our classes always overlap with the annoying Slytherin." Harry complained. "You stay in the library every day. We Gryffindors probably only have that domineering Miss Know-It-All who can often encounter you. I have heard about your deeds today." During today's flying lesson, Harry did a good thing and helped Longbottom get the memory ball from Malfoy. Levin described the rumors he heard today. Even in the library, he could hear many young wizards talking about this matter. Mrs. Pince got angry more than once. "Yeah, you have no idea how thrilling the situation was today." Harry dived 50 feet and grabbed the memory ball. Ronald said it with excitement, as if he was the one who did it. "I heard that Neville glowed as soon as he received the memory ball." "What did he forget?" Levin was quite curious about this matter. "He forgot to wear the magic robe at Hogwarts," Ronald said with some gloating. But he got a little carried away and his voice was too loud. "Hey, be quiet. This is the library." Mrs. Pince, the librarian, waved a feather duster and warned them. "For this reason, Malfoy proposed a wizard's duel to us." Harry lowered his voice and asked Levin for help, looking embarrassed. "Levin, I know very little magic." Levin's performance in class this week impressed everyone, so he immediately thought of asking him for help. "Malfoy's assistant is Crabbe, and I am Harry's assistant, but he thinks you have a better chance of winning if you come to help," Ronald added, looking at them with somewhat dissatisfied looks. He didn't have a problem with Levin. He admitted that Levin's results were very good, but they didn't represent how good his actual combat ability was. Thinking of the plot in the original work, Levin asked, "Have you never thought that Malfoy might be playing tricks on you?" But it's impossible for a wizard to escape from a duel that has been initiated." "How embarrassing that would be," Ronald said hurriedly. He really wanted to give Malfoy some color. Indeed, under normal circumstances, Ronald is right. After all, Malfoy is a member of the ancient Holy 28 families. These pureblood wizards uphold their own honor and will certainly not avoid a duel. They care about this very much. In the original book, Malfoy was able to successfully trick Harry simply because he was only a first-year wizard, and no one would take this kind of duel as a child's house seriously. As long as they were adults, Malfoy would only bring shame to the family. Therefore, he could not convince them on this basis. "Levin, will you agree?" Harry looked at him expectantly. "Okay, Harry." At this point, Levin was too embarrassed to refuse. After all, they were considered friends in the Mole world. "We're definitely going to win." Ronald and Harry high-fived excitedly. But this time they forgot to lower their loud voices. "Don't make noise in the library. Get out of here." Mrs. Ping's eye finally couldn't help it and trotted over waving a feather duster. "Well, Levin, see you in the prize display room at 11:30 p.m. The two of them saw that the situation was not going well and left the library. "Are you really going to duel with Malfoy?" Opposite Levin, Steve, who was immersed in his homework, suddenly raised his head. "Don't worry, there will be no problem," Levin said confidently. He happened to be studying invisibility technique today. This magic was mentioned in the book The Crazy Magic of Weird Wizards, and during this period, he suddenly realized the invisibility technique. Compared with the illusion in the Harry Potter world, their invisibility effect in arcane magic is much better. The former is not only difficult to learn, but the effect is just a color change, making the person or object being disguised become like a chameleon, with the color and texture consistent with the environment behind and around it. Invisibility really makes people invisible, and this spell is only level 2, so it is much easier to learn than illusion. After listening to Levin's words, Steve nodded. Indeed, for young wizards of our age, a duel is just a matter of spraying sparks at each other. What can happen? And the result of being caught is a deduction of points, and you can get them back in a few days. At 11:30 p.m., it's already curfew time. Levin tiptoed out of bed, cast his invisibility spell on himself, and arrived at the prize display room on the 4th floor with ease. The trophy room contains all past honors, awards, statues, trophies, plates, shields and medals, all displayed in crystal display cases. There is also a list of all male and female student council presidents. Levin found that he was the first to arrive. He wandered between the display cabinets boredly. When Harry and others appeared, Levin was admiring a True Wizard Tournament trophy. Chapter 24 Mischief Elf and Mind Stab. Levin, are you there? Harry couldn't find Levin here, so he called out softly. "I'm here." Levin released the invisibility technique behind them, and the sudden sound almost made them jump. Levin, when did you come? Ronald patted his chest and said with lingering fear. When Levin spoke, he almost thought he had been discovered by a professor. It's been 10 minutes. Why are you so late? Aren't you looking forward to tonight's duel? Levin glanced at the two figures behind them. One of them has thick curly hair, the other is very stocky. It's all because of Hermione Granger. She must follow. There is nothing we can do. Speaking of her, Ronald immediately felt resentful. What you did was against school rules. I almost told your brother. Hermione was also furious. I really didn't expect you, Mr. Green, to be fooling around with them. But, Miss Granger, you are actually enjoying this. Levin revealed Hermione's inner feelings without mercy. Aren't you also violating the school rules now? Professor McGonagall's character will not listen to your excuse. That's because the fat lady who looked after the door went to visit someone in some portrait. I can't go back. Mr. Longbottom can testify. Hermione pulled Neville aside a little aggrievedly, but Levin only gave him a look that said, I'll take it seriously if you say that. This drove her a little crazy. Mr. Green, you are different from them. You are a top student and the professors like you. You don't think this ridiculous duel is right, do you? Hermione suppressed her anger and tried to explain to Levin that she had always been very patient with people who were better than her. We should stop them together. You're right. I do think this duel is ridiculous. Levin nodded in agreement. But before Harry could refute, he added, but since you agreed to the duel, you should fulfill your promise. This is a matter of personal credibility and dignity. If you have read A Guide to Medieval Witchcraft, you will know that this tradition arose together with Mull chivalry and was passed down to this day. It is already part of wizard culture. As Mull-born wizards, we should follow the local customs. After listening to Levin's words, Hermione fell into silence. Ronald, on the other hand, became proud and said to Harry, I have never seen her so obedient. Harry thought thoughtfully. As expected, top students only listen to those who are better. He seems to have figured out the trick on how to deal with Miss Know-It-All. Go to Levin. Seeing that Hermione had been convinced, Levin turned to Harry and asked, don't think that I am supporting you. I still stick to my previous opinion. Think about what time you and Malfoy agreed. It's so late and he is nowhere to be seen. He is probably I'm kidding you. It's past midnight. Malfoy and the others should have arrived. Maybe they were caught by Filch. Harry guessed. Maybe it was Crabbe who was caught. You remember his size. Ronald also analyzed. As a purer blood, he still didn't believe that Malfoy would defeat them after initiating a duel. The crystal glass cabinet displaying the prizes sparkled in the moonlight. Trophies, shields, medals and statues glowed silver and gold in the darkness. The 5 people moved forward against the wall, staring at the doors at both ends of the room. Harry took out his wand in case Malfoy burst in and challenged him to a duel. Time passed by minute. Maybe he didn't dare to come because he was afraid. Ronald whispered, impatiently waiting. At this time, a voice came from the next room, which made them jump. Harry had just raised his wand when he heard someone speak. It wasn't Malfoy. Sniff around, my dear, wherever they may be hiding. The 5 people immediately prepared to leave quietly, but the clumsy Neville got into trouble again. He stumbled and quickly grabbed Ronald's waist, and the two fell onto a suit of armor together. Boom, bang, bang, crash. The sound of metal clashing was enough to wake the entire castle. Run! Harry shouted, and the 5 people immediately ran at full speed down the corridor. They skirted doorposts and ran down corridors until they emerged near the charms classroom. I told you, Hermione gasped, grabbing the seam of her chest with her hands. I told you. I think we've gotten rid of him, Harry gasped. He leaned against the cold wall and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Mr. Green is right, Hermione said to Harry. You understand, right? Malfoy didn't even plan to go there to meet you. Filch knew that someone was going to the trophy room. Malfoy must have revealed the information to him, and you shouldn't have come to the appointment. Harry had to admit her accusation at this time. But other than that, he didn't want to say anything more to Miss Know-It-All. Despicable Malfoy, I want to make him look good tomorrow. Ronald's face turned red. He had been urging Harry to come to the duel. Who would have thought that Malfoy had no honor and that he was also embarrassed? Levin patted his shoulder and advised, don't be so angry. In fact, you can let him shoot him in the foot. Tomorrow morning, you can spread this rumor. Malfoy is a coward. He is afraid of the Savior and does not dare to go to the appointment at all. The duel has tarnished the honor of Slytherin and the pureblood family. I believe your twin brother is also happy to help you with this favor. It's really yours. After hearing Levin's words, Ronald immediately became excited. You're right. George and Fred will definitely be willing to help me. I want to make Malfoy a joke. That's it. Levin smiled mischievously. Although he didn't dislike Slytherin as much as the Little Lions, he didn't mind giving Malfoy a little surprise. But now, we have to be careful. I feel something is coming. Levin seemed to feel something due to his talent in the prophecy school. As soon as he finished speaking, a clown-like guy appeared in front of them. He has a broad face, big mouth, and round eyes. He is wearing brightly colored clothes, a tie, a hat, and long slippers with long slits showing his toes. He is the famous Peeves of Hogwarts. Young wizards all think that Peeves is the same kind as the ghosts of Hogwarts. Actually, this is not the case. Levin remembers a book in the library describing a magical creature called a poltergeist. They look like ghosts but are not ghosts. They are between illusion and reality. They can move objects in physical form with physical power. They sometimes haunt specific locations, usually populated by large numbers of teenagers, and are usually attached to buildings, appear with them, or decide to move in at some point. In fact, Peeves has been living in Hogwarts Castle since the founding of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Poltergeists have never been alive either. They have never died and cannot die because they have also never lived. But because of this, poltergeists are not immune to most spells like ghosts are. Certain poisonous spells, such as the tongue spell and the launching spell, Vassadizzy, can be effective against them. Levin believes that Peeves is the poltergeist of Hogwarts. A few freshmen dare to wander around in the middle of the night. TSK, 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 naughty, naughty, you will be arrested. Peeves screamed happily and giggled. It's really difficult to deal with something like this that can go through walls. Hermione didn't know what was going on and wanted to plead with Peeves. But Levin thought about the nature of the mischievous selves speculated in the book, some kind of indestructible collection of mental chaos. Since Peeves comes from spiritual power, he will most likely be affected by the power of the mind. Just in time, as my spiritual power gradually increased, Levin has just developed an application for psychic abilities. Mind stab. With a thought, Levin's spiritual energy turned into a sharp needle and hit Peeves directly. Ah! The shrill screams echoed in the corridor. The little wizards swore that they had never heard Peeves make such a miserable sound. Everyone, let's go. Levin seized the opportunity and led them to run forward until they came to a closed door. Chapter 25 Hermione, Coach, I want to learn magic. Attracted by Peeves' screams, Filch's footsteps got closer and closer. The door is locked. Ronald whimpered desperately and pushed the door with all his strength, hoping to knock it open with great force. Let me. Hermione showed her decisive side at this time. She took out her wand, knocked on the door lock, and whispered, "The yellow hole opens." The lock clicked, and the door suddenly opened. The little wizards rushed in, quickly closed the door, and put their ears to it to listen to what was going on behind the door. We should be safe. Harry breathed a sigh of relief, slid off the door, and sat down. What's the matter, Neville? Neville kept tugging at the sleeves of his robes. He turned his head and looked around, and immediately felt something strangled his throat, and he could only exhale with a ho-ho sound. It turned out that they did not break into an ordinary house, but came to the forbidden corridor on the 4th floor. Now he knew why it was off limits. The condition of the other 3 people was not much better. Levin was the only one who looked interesting and seemed to really appreciate the rare birds in the exhibition hall. But it was no ordinary rare bird, but a monster-like big dog. This dog was so big that it filled everything from the ceiling to the floor. It had 3 heads, 3 pairs of vicious eyes that rolled round, 3 noses that were twitching and trembling in their direction, and 3 drooling mouths that were like sticky ropes and emitted suspicious yellow smoke. Hanging from the yellow dog's teeth, there would be a crack sound every time it landed. Levin knew that this was Hagrid's 3-headed dog, Luai, but the big guy in front of him was obviously different from the one in the original work. From its body, Levin could smell a strong smell of sulfur, which is the sign of infernal creatures. In addition, the 3-headed dog has a strong aura of fire element. Levin dared to assert that the Luai in front of him was not the ordinary 3-headed dog in the original work, but a real purgatory creature, the 3-headed dog of hell. But in the original Harry Potter world, there is only a world after death. But there is no hell. This anomaly reminded Levin of senior sister Cirila and the previous water ghost brain. Sure enough, this world is different from the original work. However, the main line of this world has not mutated at present. The wooden board under the 3-headed dog is the secret passage leading to the magic stone. But Levin believed that this was a test deliberately given to Harry by Dumbledore. If Dumbledore really didn't want Voldemort to get the Philosopher's Stone, then he could just discuss it directly with its real owner, Nico Flamel, and destroy it. Why bother protecting it? Moreover, in the original plot, after Voldemort failed and before Harry Potter woke up, Dumbledore completed the destruction of the Sorcerer's Stone. Destroying the Philosopher's Stone in such a short period of time shows that Dumbledore and Nico Flamel had already discussed it. Levin has no intention of destroying Dumbledore's arrangement. He doesn't have the strength to challenge them yet, and there is no need. Although tonight there is a main storyline with Harry, whom he has not seen for a long time, but with his relationship with Harry in the Mole world, it is normal for him to participate. Lupin would not rashly pay unnecessary attention and suspicion to him just because of this matter. If you deliberately reason with Harry, it will give people the feeling that there is something wrong in your heart. Let this happen naturally. Turning to look at the 4 people who were stunned, Levin sighed. Luai had a thick iron chain tied around his neck. With the length of the iron chain, it could not threaten them at all. But it's normal for little wizards to be afraid of it. Levin had to wave his magic wand. Dancing light technique. In an instant, a shining point of light lit up between his wand, then swayed like a firefly and flew towards Luai. The light spots were flying around in front of Luai. It was really beautiful. Luai was immediately attracted by the light spot. It left the little wizards behind, its 3 heads staring at the light spots spinning around it, and its limbs ready to go, as if they wanted to catch the light. At this moment, Luai is no different from a puppy trying to catch a butterfly. Get out while I've attracted its attention. Levin reminded quietly. Hermione reacted first, opened the door with a click, and several people quickly fled from here. At this time, Filch had run away to nowhere. The 5 of them separated at the top of the stairs and then went back to their respective homes. Before leaving, everyone else left, except Hermione, who suddenly grabbed Levin. "What's wrong, Miss Granger?" Levin looked at her curiously, his eyes full of sleepiness. "Just call me Hermione, Mr. Green." Hermione looked a little embarrassed, but her desire for knowledge soon overcame her shyness. "Mr. Green, please. What magic did you use to hide it in the trophy room?" "I thought it was there, disillusionment curse, at first, but that seems to be a magic that only senior students can learn, and the effect when you hide it is much different from there, disguise curse." Levin nodded. "Yes, there, phantom body curse, is indeed a magic that is only allowed to be learned by senior students. The one I used was not the phantom body curse, because my magic is much more effective than their disillusionment curse." Looking at the girl in front of him breathing a sigh of relief, Levin showed a smirk. "Stronger than their disillusionment curse? How is that possible?" Hermione opened her mouth. "Of course it's possible, because I used my own magic, invisibility." "Invisibility? That means this magic can..." Hermione couldn't believe it. "You are right, invisibility technique can achieve true invisibility, just like wearing an invisibility cloak." "So, you created a magic that completely replaces their disguise curse, and its effect can replace the invisibility cloak?" "The invisibility cloak is an expensive magical garment made from the hair of an invisible beast, which can make the wearer completely invisible. Since the effect is stronger than their phantom body curse, and it is not affected by the appearance curse like their phantom body curse, therefore it is very popular with wizards with special needs. However, the invisibility cloak is very expensive and cannot be permanently effective. It will lose its magical effect over time, making it a valuable consumable." By the way, Harry Potter's invisibility cloak is special. As one of the 3 holy artifacts of death, it not only has a permanent invisibility effect, but also blocks the positioning of prophecy spells, so it can escape the gaze of death. Because of this, many mages in history have studied how to use magic to achieve the effect of invisibility cloaks. It's a pity that they all failed. Invisibility cloaks have always been a luxury item in the wizarding world. Now Levin claims that he has invented the magic that can crush their disillusionment curse, and replace the invisibility cloak, which means that his achievements in magic have surpassed many geniuses in history. Of course Hermione found it difficult to believe it. So Levin used invisibility once in front of her, watching Levin become transparent in front of her without any flaws, and then showing up behind her. Hermione had to believe it even if she didn't believe it. "If you know how to cast the revealing spell, you will find that ordinary revealing spells cannot affect invisibility." Looking at the stunned little witch, Levin added with a smile, "Invisibility is derived from the arcane magic system after all, so it is normal for the revealing spell to be ineffective in the Harry Potter world. The only ones that can target invisibility are the 2nd level, see invisibility, in arcane magic, and the more advanced 6th level, true knowledge." As if he wanted to continue to appreciate the other person's surprise, Levin continued to add, "If you have learned illusion curse, you will find that invisibility is easier to learn than illusion curse." According to the classification of the 9-level magic system, illusion charm is approximately between the 3rd and 4th level spells, while invisibility is only a 2nd-level spell. When Hermione heard this, she couldn't help it anymore. She stepped forward and grabbed Levin's hand. "Coach, I want to learn magic." "What?" The little witch blushed, suppressing her embarrassment, and said to the boy of the same age in front of her, I mean, I want to learn magic spells from you." "Okay?" "Not just invisibility, but also control the magic of illumination flying." "You mean dancing lights?" "Yes, please teach me." "Can you?" She looked at Levin expectantly, and the dissatisfaction in her heart had dissipated a lot. If in the first week of school, she still thinks Levin is her competitor, so from now on, Levin becomes the target she wants to pursue. Now all that is left in her heart is admiration and apprehension. After all, invisibility technique is so powerful, not everyone is willing to reveal their unique skills. But Levin's warm smile dispelled his anxiety. "Of course, I'm happy that someone is willing to learn my magic. You know where to find me." Yes, I know, thank you, Mr. Green." Upon hearing this, Hermione was so happy that she could hardly form words. "Just call me Levin." The boy waved his hand. "It's already very late. Girls who stay up late are prone to acne." "Yes, it is." "So Hermione, see you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow, Levin." The girl jumped happily and disappeared from his sight. Sure enough, little girls are cuter, and just a few words of commitment and concern can bring them the most genuine emotions. If it were a mature adult, if he wanted to achieve the same effect, he would probably have to rely on real money.